We are now streaming. We are now streaming. 1 minute till broadcast.
Well, stop. Hello, good morning, good afternoon. I keep saying good morning because it feels like it was such a long night. Oops. Good afternoon, everyone. I think it is the 1 o'clock hour, so I would like to call the Durham City Council work session to order for this, the 21st day of November 2023 at 1 p.m. We certainly want to welcome all of you here in attendance and those joining us remotely as well. Madam Clerk, if you would please call the roll.
Good afternoon, Mayor O'Neill,
I am here.
Mayor Pro Tem Middleton.
I'm here.
Councilmember Caballero.
Here.
Councilmember Freeman.
Present.
Councilmember Halsey Hyman.
Present.
Councilmember Johnson has an excused absence for today, and Councilmember Williams.
I am present.
All right. We'll now turn to any announcements by council. We were here last night to midnight, so we are back together again today. Anything new happened between 12 a.m. and today? Councilwoman Caballero.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just very quickly, I want to wish everyone a restful and wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. I hope folks are able to enjoy themselves. That is all. Thank you.
Anyone else on this end?
I would just echo Councilmember Caballero and just say that it's going to be a wonderful, wishing everyone a happy Indigenous Peoples Month, Heritage Month, next month as well, because I think we'll start a little later.
Anybody else?
Madam Mayor? Madam Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, my honorable colleagues, everyone in the chamber. Madam Mayor, last night I was a bit late to the meeting because I was celebrating with our colleagues and friends at the county who are about to launch the county's iteration of guaranteed income. This is a movement that is gaining much steam around the country. And indeed, we're very proud here in Durham to be receiving national attention for our participation. A wonderful film called It's Basic was screened by the county as part of their celebration. So I just want to send congratulations out to our colleagues at the county and really excited about the residents who will be participating. Talking about this time of year when so many of us will be engaged in feasting, having guaranteed income for our neighbors and our friends, suggesting that there's a line by virtue of your citizenship and humanity that we will not allow you to fall beneath as a nation. I think it's an appropriate time of year to be celebrating a guaranteed income. So congratulations to our friends at the county, and thank my colleagues for allowing me to participate on behalf of the city to talk about our experiences with guaranteed income. And finally, just a blessed and joyous and restful holiday season to you, colleagues, and to all of the residents and citizens of our city. Thank you, ma'am.
Councilman Williams.
Briefly, thank you, Madam Mayor and colleagues. Last night I talked about a $300,000 appropriation for the Heron Rookery that our delegation was able to work out for us here in Durham out of Raleigh. And what I mean by delegation, our representatives and senators at the state level. I failed to mention the organization that really put the work in to make this happen, and that is the Ellaby Creek Watershed Association. So I just wanted to shout them out. Thought about it all last night. I didn't even mention their name, so thank you.
All right, let us proceed now to recognize our city manager who is back with us today after I hope was a great weekend with her family. She was a bridesmaid in the wedding over the weekend. And I know you had a fantastic time, so welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and members of the Durham City Council, the City Manager's Office has no priority items today.
Thank you. And we turn now to one of our city attorneys, Attorney Sophia Hernandez, who is sitting in today for Attorney Kim Rayburg. Welcome to the dais.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of the City Council. The City Attorney's Office does not have any priority items today.
All right, and we'll turn back to Paula. Did I pronounce it correctly? Paula Rowland, who's standing in today for our City Clerk, Dinah Schreiber. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, and members of City Council. The City Clerk's office has no priority items.
Thank you all. Thank you all. We will now read into the record our administrative consent items, beginning with that, and we will also read the entire agenda for this afternoon. Item number 1, Participatory Budgeting Steering Committee appointment. Item number 2 is the municipal election results, October 10, 2023 primary and November 7, 2023. Item 3 is the October 2023 bid report. Item 4, sidewalk placement and repairs performance audit, October 2023. Item 5 is the contract agreement with ETR Services LLC to provide services for the Community Conversations Project. Item 6, we're going to pull, and that will probably be the last item on the agenda today, is a discussion on City Council procedures. Item 7 is the Utility System Revenue Bond Anticipation Note Series 2023. Item 8, condemnation action to obtain 2 easements at 1708 Arrowhead Drive. Item 9, construction contract with Central Builders, Inc. of Mebane for former Wheels Skating Center uplift project. Item 10 is the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Fair Housing Cooperative Agreement Grant Award FY 2024. Item 11 is U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Partnership Grant Award FY 24. Item 12 is the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Special Enforcement Effort Funds. Item 13 is the contract amendment 1 to the purchasing contract with Bliss Products and Services, Inc. for the playground and surfacing replacement project at W.D. Hill Recreation Center. Item 14 is a contract amendment number 1 for Durham Workforce Development Board, Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act Youth Program, Eckert Youth Alternatives, Inc. Number 15 is 2023 Community Policing Development Micro Grant Project Ordinance. Item 16 is the 2023 third quarter crime report. That will take about 20 minutes. Item 17 is an amendment number 2 to Carpenter Fletcher Road Improvements Preliminary Engineering Agreement, CSXT-DOT, number 845869S. Item 18 is a Utility Professional Engineer Agreement, P-5706, Ellis Road. 19 is a Utility Extension Agreement with Sean L. Brookshire to serve 208 Fountain Street. Item 20 is a supplemental agreement number 3 with the North Carolina Department of Transportation for Hillendale Road Bicycle and Pedestrian Improvements, TIP number U4726HN. Item 21, the first amendment to contract for Durham Freeway Community Engagement Services with Idolisms, LLC. Item 22 is FY 2023-24, the first quarter financial report, which will take about 20 minutes. Item 23 is the Bloomberg Harvard City Leadership Initiative Innovation Track Core Team Update 20, and that's anticipated to take about 20 minutes. For public hearings, we have item 24 is the Consolidated Annexation 5802 South Miami Boulevard multifamily. Item 25 is a zoning map change, 618 Moorhead Avenue. Item 26 is a zoning map change, Oaks at Gray. Madam Clerk, Madam Manager, I'm sorry, the only matter that I think I have to be pulled is the discussion on city council procedures. And we will have, that will be the last item for discussion. I'd like to have the third quarter crime report as the first presentation. The second one would be the Harvard Bloomberg, because we have guests here for that as well. And if we could do the first quarter financial report after that, in that order, so we can take care of folk who may have to go back to work. Is that what you have as well?
Yes, ma'am.
All righty. Okay, we have a couple of speakers who are here with us today in person, and then we have one person on the internet as well. The first person that I have who will speak to us is Mr. Jeremy Berggren, and that will be followed by Mr. Russell Pierce, and then we'll turn to the internet for Ms. Jacqueline Wagstaff, and each of you will have 3 minutes apiece. Thank you for being here today.
Go ahead. Hey, Mayor O'Neill.
Just state your name, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Jeremy Berger, and I live at 112 East Piedmont Avenue. I'm just coming here today. I don't like coming out just to say I'm not wearing sunglasses because I'm trying to look cool. I'm just trying to not have a panic attack, you feel me? And I'm like a person with disabilities. I know this is y'all's last day up here, some of y'all. And I recently had the chance to see a therapist that helped me out like 10 years ago. And so I want to come out and say thank you in the same way that I would thank a therapist for helping me get through a time, okay? I want to say thank you for being like a political social worker to poor people, people living in Section 8 housing, people living in veterans housing, people that have experienced gun violence, people that are veterans. I want to thank you. I want to thank you, Mayor O'Neill. I know I threw some word grenades and some city stuff, you know, and I traced witnessing some gun violence in 2016. I traced what got me to come out recently. I traced it, and it was you. Okay? So I don't want to come out. You know what I'm saying? When you impacted by all that, the people that hold you up when the government doesn't hold you up is women. Okay, it's women, and then you like burn through these women. And we burned through these women this last 2 years, man. We burned through these women. You know, and this woman brought up Esther last night. You feel me? That's serious. Not talking about no Christian God. Talking about God of everybody. You know what I'm saying? I'm poor. I'm disabled. I've been watching these city council meetings and going, what's going on? Saying the same thing Councilwoman Freeman's been saying under my breath, thinking I was wrong. And I might still be wrong, you feel me? So I thank you. I thank you for carrying these burdens on people. None of these people would have spoke up if it wasn't for you. We wouldn't have heard none of these people. And then I realized I was a child of God, you feel me? I didn't ever think I would ever have a mayor like this. Come on now. I'm so glad that I live in the time when Mayor O'Neill was my mayor. The only access I have is 3 minutes in a council meeting. I'm gonna take that. Last day, man, right now, I couldn't not come up here and say thank you. Yo, and last night, this vet was used up here, and I'm not trying to yap at y'all, but this vet came up here from the VA, and I've been used a long time ago. I've been used, man. Me and my homies been used. And we need to find out that developer, and y'all who voted for SCAD, especially. I'm begging y'all, if y'all care about it, y'all need to hit that developer up. Get that vet's contact and hit him up and say, hey, I'm sorry we used you. What's your Cash App? What's your favorite restaurant? Peace, peace.
Mr. Russell Pierce. And then we have two more folks who have joined us that would like to speak, Gideon Bueno and Chris Benjamin, and then we'll turn to the internet.
Good afternoon, Mayor O'Neill, Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, members of council, Manager Page, and if I can include Manager Page's team on this today. Many times we come and ask for things to be done or fixed or changed in some way, and I've had my share of those moments with you all and with the county this year. But today I wanted to come and just say thank you. In August, with $3 million in support from you and a matching amount from Durham County, we were able to purchase and preserve Carver Creek Apartments. Not only did we save the 48 units of affordable housing, but we've opened the door to creating a supportive housing campus with deeply integrated services. Already a team has begun to work to determine the right mixture of services for the campus. They'll soon be surveying current residents to understand what they would like to see on site. We'll then move into a facilitated process with partners who are interested in being and operating on the campus. As that work is completed, we'll run into a master planning process for the entire 11.5-acre campus. We originally had hoped to have a ribbon cutting, but came to realize that would be too invasive for the residents during this time of transition. I've had the opportunity to meet with many of them and have been amazed by their stories. I think we all knew that part of our effort was to ensure folks would not be displaced from their homes. What many of us didn't know was that we were making sure they weren't experiencing a second displacement. I've heard over and over again from residents of Carver Creek about their experience renting homes in Durham, homes being sold, the people who bought them wanted to live in them or raise the rent to the point they couldn't stay, and even as seniors experiencing homelessness, and then Carver Creek became their home. It's been an amazing thing to hear those kinds of stories because that's beyond even what we expected. Another resident told me she'd been watching the news for months and joked about how much we'd been on the news. And then she said, I just want everyone to know how grateful I am that they pulled off this miracle because I know a lot of work was put into this by a lot of people in a really short amount of time. And people are truly amazed at how we as a community pulled this off in record time. And I really do want to thank you for your leadership and also for the work that Manager Page and her team did. They were equal parts brilliant and patient with us as we moved through this really quickly. I'm often asked how we got this started, and for a while I talk about the date of the property going up for sale. I don't think that's correct, though. I believe it started in the library auditorium on a dreary, rainy night last January when we gathered for the annual point-in-time count. Several of you were with us that night. I remember, Mayor, that you and Chair Howerton went out as a team. You were the very last team to come back because you took such good care and time in talking with our most vulnerable neighbors. That night, more than 120 people from the community went out, not just to count our unsheltered neighbors, but to learn from them. And what we learned that night created a sense of urgency to work together as a community to ensure our most vulnerable neighbors can have access to safe, affordable housing and the services they'll need to remain housed. So just today, thank you again for all of that. And we look forward to partnering in new ways, especially as we begin planning now for the 2024 point-in-time count, but especially Manager Page, your team, we really appreciate all their work and the leadership from the council.
Thank you so much for coming by. Mr. Gideon Bueno.
Good afternoon, everybody. I just wanted to say first, thank you for your public service. I didn't realize that this would be like the last meeting for some of you, so I just wanted to say thank you for, I guess, all of your work and all of like the unseen work that goes into showing up as your best self every day. So much appreciated. I also want to thank the first person that spoke. I just was really impacted by their words. So I'm feeling a little emotional. My emotions are very much on my sleeve right now. So anyway, so I've spoken at a couple of these city council meetings about wheels, and I know that today that y'all are going to be discussing sort of like the budget and also, I guess, moving forward with a certain contractor to upfit the space. To not only bring it up to ADA compliance, but also to, I guess, finalize some design, interior design things about it. So one of the things that I wanted to say is that, you know, I have been skating for a long time in this community, and specifically with Bull City Roller Derby. And one of the things that I learned at the last Residents Committee meeting is that the final design for this space will reduce the skating area. It's my understanding that it is final, And I just wanted to express, while I had some time, that, if there's any opportunity to prioritize like the activity that's like really limited to this space, right? Like there aren't a lot of skating surfaces, indoor skating surfaces in this area. And that does have an impact on the community that like relies on these spaces. So I just wanted to put it out there that like, when we run our practices, we would be able to have concurrent beginners skating practices and then also like intermediate advanced practices with the full rink. And I know that this space is going to be servicing multiple leagues. And so being able to run like double practices is actually really helpful, especially when there's just like limited space and areas for us to play the sport. Yeah, and I guess I do want to say that I'm also very excited, right, that we're moving forward with this project. And I'm very excited to see, the end result and that it's going to be hopefully within a year where we can skate indoors again. But yeah, thank you so much for, again, your service to the city. And I look forward to hearing more about updates on this project. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Chris Benjamin.
Good afternoon to everybody, back again. And we brought just part of our team because we're still working. And we just got some farewell items that we're going to leave the mayor. Hey, here, take this. She needs to read this card out. All right. You can come on down. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
This is for you. Thank you. When you read this, it's going to be heart-touching and heartfelt. It's from the Solid Waste Department and our team. And we just want to let you know we're coming from a different place of gratitude and love and respect. Thank you for everything you've done and what you're doing. But I need you to read that and walk away. Thank you. Have a great day.
Happy Thanksgiving and happy holidays. We're leaving you here with a farewell card from us. We want to thank the Mayor, Elaine, for spending time and talking with us as a solid waste department. And we're here to let you know that what you've done hasn't been forgotten. And we're here to let you know that your efforts were recognized as you exit out of your current position and start a new chapter in your life. We're here to support and respect your life decisions as you close this chapter and begin another chapter. As life challenges come, the time you've spent as the mayor has been a new horizon for yourself as well as for the whole city. Life has challenged you as you have challenged us. Thank you for allowing us to build and come together in solidarity, because had it not been for you and the ones that work with you in our favor, we would have never come together in solidarity. Having this short period of time, we've grown as a city, community, and as a solid waste department. So once again, Bull City Pride, Bull City Ride, Durham's Durhamite Finest, Elaine O'Neill carrying the torch to her new beginning and new chapter. We thank you sincerely from the Solid Waste Department. May God bless you and continue to watch over you as you move forward in your next chapter of life. So beautiful.
Madam Clerk, is Ms. Wagstaff available? All right. Ms. Wagstaff, if you can hear me, good afternoon and welcome. You'll have 3 minutes.
Can you hear me, Madam Mayor?
Her Honor's not at the podium yet. I can hear you. Please proceed. You have 3 minutes.
I'm here. You can go ahead.
Madam Mayor, just one observation. I on this Zoom, and it actually has frozen. So all we're looking at is just a caption of the Mayor Pro Tem, and it's nothing else. We can hear everything that's going on, but there's no visual. The screen has frozen for the Zoom link of this meeting. But now I got that out the way. Again, I just want to say, Madam Mayor, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for just being the mayor, agreeing to be the mayor, because we got to actually see what a true public servant looks like and how they operate. And you have been that throughout this whole experience that you have experienced. Even though a lot of us are sad that you are leaving, I truly understand that, you know, life has different directions for us. And I know that you're going in a different direction, but we'll always be here to support you. I know I will. I've never experienced a mayor like you in all the years of my living in Durham and even being involved in the politics of Durham. You are one in a million. So I just want to thank you. And if Monique Hyman is there, I just want to say, getting to know you and you being on that diocese for the short amount of time, you've made some great impacts. And there are people out here that will continue to stand with you. But I also want to address the fact that I know there's a presentation going to be done about the crime, and we know crime is rising. And I watched the media this morning, and they talked about that the murder rate has increased by 9%, rapes have increased by 21 point something percent. And honestly, based on that vote that was taken last night, we haven't seen anything yet in Durham. We think that crime is going to go down. It's not going to go down. There are going to be more people that are going to be housing insecure. There are going to be more people on these streets. And when people become housing insecure, unfortunately, some of these elements of crimes creep into their lives. And that's what we're going to have to deal with. And that's going to be that blood is on the hands of those 4 votes last night that raised their hand to move forward in an effort that went against the general public. The public stated their objection to it, and the people that voted for it didn't listen to the public. They felt like developers were more important than the people, the citizens of Durham. And as I've said, elections do have consequences, and this election has given us some consequences. And this is for the mayor-elect. I hope that you do, and this is my hope, that you do a much better job when you take over that diocese as the mayor that you have done for us in Ward 3. So I'm hoping and I pray that you actually listen to people and you actually do the job that you're supposed to do and not do the job that's developed for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Did you want to sign up to speak at the citizens? All right. And then you fill out the card afterwards, Mr. Garrett. And then we will turn to our third quarter crime report, as we have no pulled items today.
So I'm really here to talk about the Bloomberg, but hearing that crime report, right? First, I want to say thank everybody for what you do and what you're gonna do. However, this crime.
Mr. Garrett, if you'll suspend for a second. Madam Clerk, the clock is
Yeah. And you're gonna have your entire presentation on Bloomberg right after we do the crime report.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm here really to talk about the Bloomberg. However, I'm one of those guys that the JII talking about the crime. Like, I'm willing to work with anybody pertaining to crime, to stop the violence, the intervention and prevention. My concern is, this a holiday coming up, right? And them kids out there is starving, and they ain't trying to figure out no other way except how to eat. So what I'm asking this team to do is to is to build on what the mayor has set aside. The mayor has put some plans together, and because she's walking away, don't mean the plan can't stay. So what I want to do is invite myself into your world and invite you into my world, because the streets don't stand up in here. The streets are out there. But I'm willing to intervene between the streets and in here, but y'all got to allow me to. What we got to do is take personalities out of the way and put the principle in. The principle is we want to stop these kids from dying. And we got to quit worrying about the personalities. And we got to say, okay, this is really what I want to do for my city. Now, I love my city. That, you know, if you really want to serve Durham, like them kids out there are killing each other, man. Like, what can we do to stop the violence? You know, we can talk a good game, and I can stand there for 3 minutes and tell y'all what's happening. But what I'm saying is, like, the crime rate is going up. The crime rate is going up. The crime rate is going up. What are we willing to do about it? Monique, I've heard some wonderful things about you. My name is Dennis. I am willing to sit down and talk to you. I really want to talk to you. Mayor up and coming, Mark, I want to talk to you guys. City manager, thank you for the opportunity. But I really want to say, Mayor O'Neill, thank you for everything you have done from the time you walked into this gate. And I know you ain't walking out the gate. You know, I know that, and I'm here for you. Like, I support you. You know, Deidreana has done some wonderful things in our community, but what we're missing is the collaboration of working together, man. We all sit amongst each other, but we got to work together because people still dying. You know, crime is still going on. So what are we really willing to do about it? Every one of y'all can have my number. And I promise you, them streets I know. I promise you that.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. At this time, we'll turn to our first presentation on crime, 2023 third quarter crime report. As our chief makes her way on her crutches. Chief, you still on crutches, huh? Let's see, I always look so good. You have on heels today? Last time I saw you, you had on heels with your crutches.
I was pre-op then.
All right. Well, we're glad you're here today, Chief.
Ma'am, thank you.
Been a pleasure.
I need my tablet, my legal pad. Yeah, that's one. And a pen. There's a pen in there. Thank you. Thank you. Takes a little bit for me to get situated now, so bear with me. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City of Durham Council, Manager Page, City Leadership, my officers that are in attendance and that are listening, as well as my staff, Durham Police Department, and our community. I am bringing you today the third quarter crime report, as I always do each quarter. As you know, this particular report covers 5 measures: Part 1, violent crime, and Part 1, property crime, our clearance rates, response times. We have kind of tweaked this report just a little bit to reflect some different information that we think would be a little more helpful for you, and our staffing levels. So this is what our crime looked like, or looks like now, for our Part 1 violent crimes. And as you can see, we were up in 2 categories and down in 2. Homicide and rape, we saw increases, as you all know, as you all have been watching the news and probably keeping track for yourself. We're up 9%, 9.4% in homicide, and rape 21.6%. For the last few quarters, we have been up in rape in the cases that have been reported. Many of them are cases that have occurred or belated cases from previous years. Our robbery has come down. 21.3% is certainly not an insignificant number. Staff has been doing a fantastic job with trying to identify and apprehend groups of individuals, juveniles, and a sprinkling of adults that have been committing a lot of our robbery trends, including robberies against our Hispanic and Latino community. And aggravated assault saw a slight decrease. Overall, we are about 5.5% down in violent crime. So as of November 20th, we are at 45 homicides. We are on task to, obviously, and we have surpassed where we were last year. And this number actually includes one negligent manslaughter, but it doesn't include the 2 justifiable homicides that we did have to date as of November 20th. As I said earlier, our rape was up. We had 118 actual forcible rape offenses, which is different from what's reported. 34% of the reported offenses occurred in prior years, so we're seeing more, as we have been, more belated sexual assault and rapes being reported. And 15 of our 28 clearances were reported in prior years, and this is significant, to have 15 of the 28 clearances having been reported from prior years, because, as we know, the likelihood of solvability for cold case or belated sexual assaults and rapes, the likelihood of actually being able to identify an offender decreases as time goes along. So I do want to hold up and uplift my team of investigators working with cold cases, as well as our forensics teams that have worked so hard to bring these offenders to justice. Want to take a small celebration for our robberies being down. I mean, that's also significant. When we talk about robberies and violent crimes against people, oftentimes those are some of the hardest crimes to actually solve. And also prevent, right? So 75% of our robberies were from persons. So that's down 20% from this time last quarter. 42% of our robberies from persons had 1 or more Hispanic victims. So as you've seen on the news, we've worked very hard to notify our general population, but also our residents that are most affected by these crimes, where our Hispanic and Latino community have been specifically targeted because of them leaving. So when they leave stores and places of business, they are being followed. And they're being targeted because of the likelihood that they have money on them. And staff has worked very hard to try and really enhance our community outreach. Many of you know Officer Avila. She spoke Penham Construction. We worked closely with Penham to organize a community outreach and safety event in which she was able to come in and speak to some of our community members that were present. But that is just a small portion of the work that it's being done around social media engagement and outreach regarding these crimes. So I'll move forward to our shooting incidents. So we are up in shooting incidents, and I know this without necessarily having to look at the numbers themselves, because I get an alert every time we have a shooting, and I read the watch reports, and I know when we have one shooting, when another one is happening, and my officers are having to run from one end of the city to the other. And really work to address these crimes. We are up 17.2%. That is staggering compared to this same time last year. However, the persons that have been shot in these are down 22.4%, with 3% of those being fatal, and then we had obviously 26.5% reduction in that we saw that were non-fatal. So of the 676 shooting incidents, 77 of those were initiated by a ShotSpotter alert, with no corresponding 911 call being received. We want to start to talk about ShotSpotter as we prepare for at some point providing a presentation to council at the full end of our pilot program. Multi-victim firearms incidents accounted for about 34% of all aggravated assaults. So we're having more victims in these incidents of aggravated assaults. And as you know, our target is less than 30%. We had 837 guns that were seized in 624 incidents. That doesn't add up, right? So that means that there's multiple guns at these incidents. And I did not pull the numbers, but I believe that we are seizing more now in these incidents through the third quarter, and that means significantly that we were up 15% over year to year. So property crime. We are going into the holiday season, and we are up going into this holiday season. Property crimes are one of those crimes that can potentially be preventable. We have to really learn how, as community members, as the public, to harden ourselves against property crime, to make it very hard for those criminals to want to break into our vehicles or break into our homes or even steal our motor vehicles. And so as a result, burglaries were up 15.6%. Larcenies up, so those are our shopliftings and our larcenies from motor vehicles. 156% increase in motor vehicle theft. I understand it's a nationwide trend. We are making arrests of rings of juveniles, and unfortunately, you know, when one group is arrested, another group pops up. So of the burglary offenses, as you see, we had 1,066 burglary offenses. 61% of those were from homes, from residential locations. 15% of those were from retail business locations. So tools, easies, that's what they're trying to find is tools, is construction tools, anything that most likely you aren't going to have a VIN number for, or not a VIN number because that'd be a car, but most likely you're not going to have a serial number for. And like I did the other day, you just take it out of the box and you put it up and it's trash. Everything else is trash. I don't record anything. So I want to just, you know, for community members, please make sure when you are getting your fancy drills and things like that, make sure that you are recording the serial numbers on these. It makes it easier for us to be able to locate them at the pawn shops and hopefully bring someone to justice for at least possessing that stolen property. Our larcenies were obviously up at the end of the third quarter. 43% of our larcenies were from motor vehicles. 52% of all stolen guns came from motor vehicles. 60% of the vehicles with a gun stolen were unlocked. I think it's absolutely horrible that people still, no matter how many times we get up here, they still have the audacity to leave a firearm in a vehicle and leaving your firearm unlocked, because you know what's happening to that firearm that you've left in your car and you've left it unlocked for access. These people are going out here and using these firearms to shoot or kill someone. Let that sink in. And unfortunately, my officers are left with trying to investigate these cases where folks are just not securing their firearms and are not locking their vehicles and are leaving things out. And it puts a tremendous workload on my team. Motor vehicle theft up 156%. 86% of the vehicles that were stolen, not including attempts or vehicles not registerable, have been recovered. So we are recovering these vehicles at a high rate, and that's good. Unfortunately, they've already been used in whatever crimes that they're going to be used in. 21% of those cars that were stolen were left running unattended. It's getting ready to get cold. It has gotten a little chilly. Please do not leave your vehicles running and unattended. I had to get on my son the other day for leaving my car running and unattended. So We are not immune to that. But please be aware of that as wintertime starts to really hit us. Let's look at our clearance rates. I want to just take a moment and really celebrate and uplift the work that our investigative teams are doing, that our forensics teams are doing, our patrol officers at the very first level, the work that they're doing to try and preserve these crime scenes, which, you know, if we have good evidence going in, the likelihood that we will have a good outcome is high. To date, from 2023 third quarter, our homicide clearance rate, so that's cleared by arrest or an ex-clear, is 80%. That is far above what FBI previously reported in 2020 of 49%. So we are clearing our homicides. Our rapes are just a little bit below, but staff still doing a good job with those clearances. And then overall, for our violent crime, we are slightly below clearances for the national clearance rate for municipalities our size at 30.9%. Burglaries are being cleared just below. Overall property crime, we have a low clearance rate, but I do want to just show you the motor vehicle theft. We are far below national average on clearance rate for motor vehicle thefts. And that's simply because it's very hard to find any evidence within those vehicles unless we happen upon a group of individuals that we've been investigating for another case that we also are looking at them as perpetrating the motor vehicle thefts. So calls for service. So we are slowly going up in our average response time. So as you know, our targeted average response time is 5 minutes and 48 seconds. We are at 6 minutes and 42 seconds. That's up from 4.2%, and from the third quarter in 2022. We answered 49.5% of our priority 1 calls for service in less than 5 minutes through the third quarter of 2023, which still did not meet our target of 57%. We are responding to those priority calls. Those priority calls are getting the fast response. We are relying very heavily on other municipalities within our region, so the Sheriff's Department, as well as staff from North Carolina Central University, Public Safety, Duke Public Safety. So in an effort to really help us in some of these response times and to help us as far as staffing wise, the watch commanders do reach out and request assistance to help. In addition, as you know, we started again, our investigators and other sworn officers, other officers through the rank of executive staff are riding patrol. Our supplemental patrol and supplemental shifts are still happening in an effort to really address some of the staffing issues that we are continuing to see. So I want to just take a moment to give you a snapshot on violent crime rate by fiscal year, and what you'll see in the next slide is the property crime rate by fiscal year. And again, I can't take credit for this data or these slides. Jason Sheese is here. He does a great job. Mr. Huey and the rest of Sean Huey and the rest of my team do an outstanding job of providing this information. So what you're looking at of this chart is the number of violent crimes reported over the last 11, and we do fiscal years for this. Normalized as so the rate per 100,000. Our target is to have fewer than 700 violent crimes per 100,000 residents, which is, you see that in kind of the orange hashed line. So if we look at the preceding 10 years, what we see is that the chance of achieving our target this year was low, and that's depicted by the blue shaded area. And so we were below our target of 700 violent crimes per 100,000. We were actually at 612. So our violent crimes per 100,000 has gone down, right, has decreased, but what the data says and what it feels like to our community, it just doesn't always seem to match up. But the data says that we are seeing a reduction in our violent crime per 100,000. Now let's look at our motor vehicle theft incidents, because that is the largest increase that we have seen this year, period. So again, this chart actually shows the motor vehicle theft incidents over the last 20 calendar quarters. And the average number of motor vehicle thefts of these incidents was 189 per quarter prior to 2023. When 2023 happened and the Kias and the Hyundais began to be the most effective vehicle to be stolen, that whole trajectory just skyrocketed. And that's where we've seen the increase, and that has been most affected on our Hyundais and Kias. Okay, so this is our ShotSpotter slide. We generally like to give just a brief snapshot of our ShotSpotter. So through the third quarter of 2023, we had 1,125 published incidents. So those are the incidents that make it to our officers once they are vetted through ShotSpotter and the team there. And a total of 4,245 shots were detected out of 1,125 incidents. That's a lot of shots. Averaged about 3.9 shots alerts per day, and 3 or 4 shots per alert. 26.3% of the ShotSpotter alerts also had a corresponding 911 call. And, but as we know, and we've kind of talked about that before, that's more likely in rapid shots and multiple fire shots versus the one-off shot. And that's, we want to encourage people to even call when they hear the one-off shot. About 19.9% of the gunfire incidents resulted in an incident report being filed, and that's a good thing. That means that there was something there on scene that the officers ended up filing a report. With 109 of the 186 reports that we have filed being supported by a 911 call, 27 of the 186 reports, there was a total of 30 gunshot wounds. So we're going to these, we are seeing people that were shot. I do want to note that one of the 30 that we had that were pronounced dead at the scene, victims were pronounced dead at the scene. 3 of the 30 refused medical transport. 7 of the 30 were taken to the hospital by another means, so somebody else put them in a car and went to the hospital. And 19 of the 30 were taken by EMS, with 5 of those having life-threatening gunshot wounds. We did have 4 notable ShotSpotter successes in this quarter. 2 ShotSpotter notifications actually led to arrests. So this really helps us in terms of the time period of the shooting, how many rounds were fired, and do we receive any leads from that based off of the shell casings recovered. One of the ShotSpotter notifications led to a faster medical intervention, and the information from the alert came about 47 seconds before the first 911 call. And then one ShotSpotter notification did not have a corresponding 911 call from the public. So although the victim in this case unfortunately did not survive, that victim most likely would have been found the next day by a community member as a result. So let's take a look at our staffing at the end of the third quarter. Just want to give you a brief summary of the staffing. So at the end of September, our staffing was at 77%. We are down. We have a 24.7% vacancy rate, and currently we do have Academy 58 that started in August 14th. We started with 15 recruits, and we have 13 still left in the academy. During the third quarter, the recruiting unit They've initiated multiple campaigns. My staff and public affairs unit has been working very closely with the recruiting unit, both at off-site events, but also advertising events occurring at the police department, and also working to do some advertising on our local buses, Durham Bulls, working with the Durham Bulls, as well as the North Carolina DMV, a hub digital advertising. So they've worked very well trying to get that information out. We continue to do our recruiting events, so we've had 31 events this quarter. Recruiting unit actually made 13 visits to Fort Liberty, and they have visited colleges and universities throughout the area, to include Johnson C. Smith, Meredith College, Elizabeth City State, App State, UNC Greensboro, and working with North Carolina Central University on a much bigger endeavor that we hope will prove to be very successful for us in the future. So our U visa requests, those continue to come in. From July through September, we received 58 U visa requests. We approved 40 of those and 18 were denied. So we try to address those U visa requests and either approve or deny and provide follow-up once they are received, so that we do not have a backlog. And that concludes my presentation, and I will just want to end the presentation by saying that public safety is not for the faint at heart, whether you all are on that dais, you know, and those that are here in the audience, my staff, sworn and non-sworn. Public safety is not for the faint at heart. And so Mayor O'Neill, Councilmember Halsey-Hyman, and I know Councilmember Johnson is not here from the Durham Police Department. We want to thank you for your service to our community. Thank you for serving us well, and we wish you well in your future endeavors. I know you're not going anywhere, and we wouldn't have it any other way. And for our current council members that will still continue to serve, I say congratulations and thank you for continuing to pick up that torch and lead. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Chief. Are there any comments from colleagues? We'll just go straight down the road then.
Thank you. I would just offer thanks as well to you and our team. Just understanding, like, it's been really hard coming out of COVID to figure out what we can do to kind of address the vacancies. And I really want to just take a moment and just say that whatever it is that we can do, just continue to keep asking, because I'm confident that we will be more supportive as we move forward. I'm mindful that I wanted to congratulate, sorry, I made a note, Investigator Deborah Smith with the North Carolina Law Enforcement Women's Association, just for that, the appreciation for her work, and just acknowledging, like, with this shortage, how difficult it becomes to do investigations is really what concerns me the most. And I'm thinking through, I know I live in a neighborhood where ShotSpotter has been very helpful, because I think it gets the call in quicker than the phone calls. And I know there's been at least 2 deaths and a number of folks who have been hit where the response has been helpful. And so I'm very clear that that's not an answer, and what that looks like moving forward. I think I have to take a page from, you know, those in the room who are trying to thank Mayor O'Neill for the work that she's tried to get done here. And we've got to figure out, to Mr. Garrett's point, what's going to stop these kids, because they're really young, and I mean, even up to 30, from shooting each other, because that's not a response that you naturally occur. Like, it doesn't just naturally occur for you to just shoot at one another. And so I'm mindful of that, and I will continue to support Hayti Reborn Justice Movement and the work of many of their partners to try and just get to these folks before they pick up a gun, which are when they're younger. And I'm interested in what it looks like for recruitment I know that the COPS program or COPS initiative was moved forward. What your recruitment looks like, and not today, but just kind of going forward, kind of parsing out where female recruitment and numbers are, so that we're watching and tracking if it's really taking effect over time. There's a lot of prongs in this that, you know, we've been trying to touch on, and there's a lot of pieces to this. And I will say that I'm grateful that the HEART program's in place to do some of that work. And when it goes to countywide, I think that'll be even better. I also, and then also just another thought, if you're tracking response times as well, I don't know how that works, but you probably could speak to how you're tracking response times if Durham Tech or Central are picking, or Duke University are picking it up. But probably trying to give us more information around that in the next quarterly report so that we know. Because I'm thinking that it's probably going to be a while before we get there if you've only got 13 recruits. So those are my initial thoughts. I'm still reading the report. This Granicus situation is really difficult for me right now. But I do appreciate what your officers, what the entire public safety department is doing. And I left the National League of Cities with some great ideas around domestic violence, and I want to have conversations about that and how we can partner to do some work with the fire department. And so I really have some hope in this, and I'm looking forward to that. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Good to see you. I hope you're healing quickly. I liked the addition of the 2 slides where that showed the longer-term data trends. It's very helpful for our community to see what we feel and perceive isn't necessarily, while crimes increased this year, we're still seeing overall lowering of trends. I've reached out around meeting because I know that I'm certainly hearing from our Latino community about a lot of fear, and rightly so. And I know that a few months ago, I think the last time you were here, I said, you know, what are we going to be doing in preparation for the holiday season, because we've seen this trend before. I really appreciate the event that was held. I was not able to go, I was out of town, but please know that you have my support, and whatever you need, I will happily show up and do whatever is necessary. For the folks out there who are targeting the Latino community, it is quite sickening to me that you would target hardworking folks who are often undocumented. And so when you rob them of the cash that they've earned, the impact on them and their family is a ripple effect that, quite frankly, if you are a US citizen or have status, you don't understand. It is so, the lack of compassion of what that means, and the lack of awareness of what harm you actually are causing to folks is, it's quite frankly disturbing. And I really wish the folks who are making that choice would stop. Obviously, a robbery on anyone and anyone in our community is horrific, but the fact that you're targeting folks who are often the folks that are the least of these are not folks who have safety nets. It's why the evictions in our Latino community have been so horrific during the pandemic, because they didn't have a safety net. They can't apply for unemployment. They can't apply for Medicaid. So many of the things that catch a lot of us if we are hit on hard times, they don't get it. They show up to work. They've struggled a lot to get here. They have fled situations that we, quite frankly, do not understand. And I'm sick of it, and I need Durham and every single resident and neighbor who calls the city home to step up and help our neighbors. It's not okay. It happens over and over and over again. I want to thank the folks at Pinham and other places who are working diligently to get the word out in our community. But it's just gobsmacking that folks would create that kind of harm and target folks intentionally, because that's what's happening. It's predatory behavior and it's gross. So I know that your staff is working diligently, and please count on my support. Thank you. I know we're seeing some overall trends that are not great. I think the car theft, it is national. My mom's Kia got stolen in Tucson, Arizona, completely destroyed. So it is a national trend that is affecting a lot of folks who maybe you can't afford to replace your car. And so if it gets totaled, that's a lot of people's means to work. And a lot of folks don't have several $1,000s just sitting around to replace a vehicle. So I was with your police officers when I was doing a ride-along, and I don't even remember how many car thefts we got that night. And I know our police officers do a really diligent job trying to take evidence, and it takes hours of their time to try and collect prints and help the community members whose cars have been stolen. So again, really thank your staff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Chief, it's always good to see you and your staff that's present. Please, as always, extend our gratefulness to the men and women under your command. First, I just want to fully associate myself with your comment, your observation that in spite of the overall trend of violent crime going down, that is absolutely of no solace to victims. If you've had a family member that's been shot or raped, we can't talk to you about the aggregate trend going in the right direction. It's important that the public knows that, but this is not a victory lap, and we've got a lot of work to do, particularly when it comes to gunfire and rapes. I want to say to you publicly, this is the first time I think you've been before us since the incident on 147, which received some national attention, where our highway was shut down. And I want to congratulate you and your command staff for the way that incident was handled. Folk like us who are in the political arena sometimes try and use things for purposes to further our agenda. Those of us who are familiar with the way government works in the state of North Carolina knows that the Durham City Council has no tactical command of the police department. We don't pick up the phone and order you to do things. We are several layers removed from that. And pretending that we are doesn't really help matters. And I want to say publicly that our police department has been noted for the way we handle crowd management situations. I think you handled it brilliantly that day. Durham is not lawless. We are not or without order. As a matter of fact, for our friends that like to tout that North Carolina is the most business-friendly place in the country, because of our tax structure, when those businesses come here, the city they want to stay in most likely is Durham. The place where their folk want to live is Durham. The driver of our economic engine is Durham. So we're not lawless, we're not orderliness and without order, and you play a large part in that. So I want to congratulate you and thank you for the way you handled that situation on 147. Had an opportunity to brag on you at National League of Cities last week. I presented to colleagues there about the way we engage the public around new technology rollouts. And ShotSpotter was used as a case study. And I had a chance to talk to colleagues from all over the country about the way you and your team here in Durham engage the public, the portal and website that you've shown us, bracketing out whether you agree with the technology or not, but the way that we handled community engagement is becoming a model. And I was very pleased to be able to brag on you folk presenting to colleagues from around the country in Atlanta this past week. So I want to congratulate you on that and thank you for the transparency and openness of the technology. And finally, just a quick question, Chief. Some time ago, there were some questions around some of our special teams, and there was some scrutiny, particularly with traffic stops and some incidents in the McDougal Terrace area. Could you give us kind of just a quick Reader's Digest status report on our deployment and use of specialized teams and how that's going? I know relative to our staffing situations as well, just kind of give us a 30,000-foot view of how we're deploying or using, or if we're still using specialized teams, enforcement teams.
So we are not using them only because of the staffing. So, you know, as an exec team, we have to make some very tough decisions. And, you know, obviously our patrol officers, if we can't respond to your call in a timely manner, you know, it doesn't really matter how many people you have on specialized units if you're not answering that call. So we have had to take CAT and move CAT back to uniform patrol. So they are answering 911 calls. We've had to do some some more shifting and flexing with our criminal investigations division and our organized crime to continue to figure out how we can handle the load that's coming in, as well as our units that specifically function around outreach. We're having to make some tough decisions so that we can be there, and also too so that our officers feel safe. Officers have to feel safe in order to be able to respond. We have to keep them mentally ready, as well as making sure that they're safe as we move forward to securing our city. But we've had to make some changes, and one of the first that was felt was moving CAT back to uniform patrol to solely answer 911 calls. Our selective enforcement team is doing the same in between some of their normal duties, as well as members of Organized Crime Division and CID.
Right. I noticed, Chief, that the response time for ShotSpotter alerts seems to be closer to our goal for how we want to respond to 911 calls. And is that in part because the alerts go directly to the car? How would you account for that?
Yes, so it's two things. So one, it's one of the things that when we embarked on the ShotSpotter pilot, we also looked at how we prioritize shots, sound of shots, right? That also came on the heels of inviting Dr. Cook back in to do a refresh study from the 2017 study that he had done on our response to violent, non-fatal shooting incidents. And so what we found was how we responded really was kind of outdated for our shots fired calls. And so we moved those from a priority 3 response to a priority 2 response citywide. And then, yes, so that increased the response time. But also, too, ShotSpotter allows us to, the officers are notified before communications even receives that first call. So officers are notified in the cars, they start going in that direction. You know, theoretically, they call into communications, or communications will notify and say, you know, there's been a ShotSpotter alert, and the officers are already on the way. So yes, so it has changed the way we respond to sound of shots, but also citywide, it's changed the priority that we have placed on sound of shots based upon previous practices and best practices.
Thank you so much for that, Chief. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your entire team. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We'll go to our right.
Thank you.
Left.
Thank you so much, Chief, and it's great to see you and your team. Quick question. Some of my colleagues already have discussed some of my points that I wrote down, but I think what's really standing out is the amount of juvenile infractions. Our kids are out and about, and they're getting in a lot of trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that, you know, there's no police response time that's considered as a solution. I'm pressing the envelope here because you're chief of police. However, we're Durham, and
You never do that.
you guys are awesome. So any ideas or desires or wishes you think we could supplement some of what you all are doing in regards of responding to our youth?
I mean, I would say this is that, you know, we are doing at the police department, we are capacity.
Right.
Right? And so even with some of our partnerships, we're at capacity because I have to have officers to manage those partnerships. What I will say is if as a community group, especially, again, our large community groups, you know, really it's about intervention and being consistent with it, right? North Carolina Central University is constantly doing work in our communities where the work is most needed with our kids. Doesn't have to be a partnership with the police department, doesn't even have to be a partnership with the city of Durham. There just needs to be a connection. So we need the help. The police department is at this point not able to carry that torch in the way that we have done in 5, 10, 15 years prior. And I would say too is that our parents of these children, our guardians of these children, what we also too see just going and responding to these calls is that they are in need of help. I don't know what that help looks like because it's different for everyone. But I think it's, you know, and I've heard it said in several places, is we can't just simply tell people what they need, right? We have to ask them what they need. And that's something that at the police department, it's not always easy for us to do because it can be perceived as us trying to do something else with other motives. But I do think we have enough people in this community that we should be able to start addressing, you know, what do the guardians need, what do the parents need, and how do you get that to the kids, right? So I will just give a huge shout out to Mr. Frederick McNeil. Many of you know him. I will tell you, I was happy to know him when Sidekicks was not getting the publicity it's getting now, when they didn't get the checks. But one thing that he had been doing is he had been consistent in his endeavor. And it has really made a difference in those kids at Burton in a tremendous way, in a groundbreaking way. So I know you didn't ask for all that, but.
No, you went right into where I was headed, so I appreciate that. I appreciate you really defining the lane that your department plays, because our kids are bored. There's just too much time on their hands across the city. And we also, Councilmember Jose Hyman, I remember one of our first conversations was around mentorship. We have a lot of organizations in the city that are mentoring, but there's a lot of mentoring in isolation. And I think that as a community, it's time for us to scale our relationships, expand our capacity. I look forward to working on those things. And, you know, not adding another thing to your plate, but I know for a fact that our officers have a lot of relationships in the streets as well. Mm-hmm. Durham is unique in that way. You know, I would love to hear, just not even necessarily in a formal capacity, but I would love to talk with some of them and hear some of those conversations, because they've built relationships, and I plan to do the same. There are some conversations that are happening right now that I look forward to talking to you more about, that will hopefully have a citywide impact on youth engagement. Regarding the cars being left unlocked while running, I used to be guilty of that myself, but I did it when I was back home, where you can leave your doors unlocked too in the country, but the behavior is different here. Is there any type of accountability, this is probably something at the state level, but is there any type of accountability that can be held if you have a gun? And I know folks beyond the local level want to praise guns more than people, but is there any type of accountability that can be held on if you have a firearm in your car, you are responsible for being responsible?
Well, let me start this by saying, one, we never ever want to victimize the victim, right? We all in this room understand the concept of, we've been taught that if you set something somewhere, it should be there when you get back. But we are not in that world anymore. And we have to embrace and understand that reality. And by embrace, I mean, that's where we are. That's not going to change anytime soon. Having said that, we have to change our behaviors in how we go about our daily lives, including how we secure our firearms. And, you know, I would say to you that that's a legislative decision. Certainly, I'm disappointed that there is not anything, so right now the law says, to be charged with failing to secure your firearm, a child must have access to it and have hurt someone or what have you with it. It doesn't align with what we are seeing, where a firearm is taken because it's left in the glove box, right? And so that's a legislative action. And again, this is not in any way punishing or punishing a victim, right? Because we don't want to do that. But at the same time, we also have to be very aware that if you call yourself a responsible gun owner, that's not responsible. And you either you carry it safely or you shouldn't have it. So.
Thank you for that. And my where I was headed with that is at some point, we became required to wear seatbelts. And at some point you have to be required to secure your firearm if you're going to have one. But I know that's nothing we can handle here at the local level. But thank you for that. And lastly, have we seen, and I don't know if this question was asked or not, have we seen any uptick in here at the local level attacks on the Muslim or Jewish or Asian community since these?
So what I'll say is this, is have we seen an increase in reported incidents? I wouldn't say we've seen a significant increase, but what we have seen is an increase in information coming into our intelligence unit that we've had to vet for any potential threats. So we have seen an increase, which actually is very good, because that means people are seeing things that don't seem quite right, and they're reporting it for us to vet. Right, so we are constantly doing that, but we also are constantly in conversations with all of our faith communities, especially in a time that we're in right now, on what to watch for and when to call us and when something is just not considered something small. So we are seeing an increase in just things being reported to us, and I can appreciate that, and I'm thankful for that. But as far as isolated incidents, we're not seeing just that increase in incidents that we can say are done simply because of someone's faith or background.
Thank you. And I know you mentioned just earlier in closing, members of our Hispanic community been targeted. I just really would like our neighbors to see something, say something, please. We don't have the capacity to predict, when someone is going to act, but if you see it, say something. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, how are you?
Good, ma'am. I'm here.
First of all, I would just want to say it's been a pleasure for the last 19 months to work with you and your officers. You always think of things outside the box, and you know that I have a creative spirit, and so I appreciate that. I also want to say thank you to the commercial I saw recently, and I think our person here is in the audience. Shout out to you in terms of the commercial, because I was looking, I was like, oh, I know that person, and then it was really educational because, first of all, it was creative, it was cute, but it was also educational. I don't know who the perpetrator was, because they were good too, but I want to just say thank you for that innovative, creative education around leaving your cars unlocked, around the car, the safety arm in the car. It was like all of those things that you're talking about was in that commercial, so I want to thank you for that. I also want to just piggyback on our mayor-elect, Leonardo Williams. He knows that one of the first things when I came on council, we had the same passion about mentorship. And I am not going to be on council anymore, but I do know and feel that I think this council will continue to push the work. January will be mentoring month. I also asked for money in the budget to look at the collaborations around mentoring organizations, because just in my 19 months, I've spoke with a lot of the mentoring programs, and it's like one person is applying for a grant for aftercare, another person is applying for a grant for maybe mental health, and they're not really working together. And one of the things that I also want to say too, in terms of Mr. Freddie McNeil, I actually worked a lot with him too, and I will continue to do that on the side. But it's just disheartening to me that now everybody wants to come and give a check. And now everybody wants to be on TV and interview him. But he literally put a lot of his own money and time into that program. And so there's a lot of mentoring programs out there that are struggling, that are trying to kind of start with our kids. But I will say too that, especially around this time of the holiday, it is survival of the fittest. Most of you know my story. I came from the South Bronx of New York, public housing. And if I didn't have people that wrapped around services around me, if I didn't have those programs, and if I didn't have a praying mother, I wouldn't be sitting here, right? And so you have to look at the things of why youth are getting involved. First of all, again, employment issues, training things, education, and housing. Those are the things that our children are lacking. And not only are they lacking it, but again, when you have a mother who has told me, come get this 10-year-old because I don't know what to do with them, that's a problem. So we're failing our people here in Durham. And so I am praying and hoping, and I'm just gonna say I know that this continued council will continue to work and continue to press the work that I started, because I didn't have that much time with 19 months. And I'm hoping the mentoring program continues, the celebration continues. I'm hoping that $50,000 that I did get in the budget in terms of collaboration mentoring, I know that, like I said, Mayor-elect Williams, we share that passion. I know we all do, but I know we've had those conversations. So I'm just praying that that work continues to go on. And I thank you again.
Thank you, thank you.
Well, Chief, you know, I've had a lot of experience working with police departments, sheriff's departments, just law enforcement in general over the last 29 years, but the last 2 years has really given me an inside peek at what you actually do, but at a distance. And I just want to let the community know that all that she does, you don't see a lot of it. Most of it you don't see. And about every week, we get about 2 or 3 emails coming to the mayor's office. A lot of times you're not even copied on them. And someone has a complaint about something that's going on in their neighborhood and something that they feel the police could be or are not doing. Everyone that I have turned over to, forwarded to the city manager, deputy city manager, both Ferguson, where the police department resides on his portfolio, and to you, you have answered within 24 hours with a very long, detailed answer. We just did that just this week on an issue. And so the care and concern and the time that you put in to this job, I want you to know that I have seen it and I appreciate it. And you have done an excellent job of upholding the professionalism of the Durham Police Department. And we've been very fortunate to have great chiefs in the city. We have one former chief sitting out in the audience that you will hear from later, I'm sure, former Chief Steve Chalmers, who's a good friend of mine, as well as I have a lot of respect for him. So the road that has been paved of excellence has only grown wider and longer under you. And I thank you for what you do. There's no amount of money that one can pay you for that care and concern that you show to our citizens, especially during these hard times when you're watching crime go up. And both you and I are parents of black boys, black young men, and that's who's dying on our streets in a lot of instances, and that's painful for us to watch, and you're in it every day trying to make a difference. But it's gonna take more than you and your police department. It's gonna take an entire community to fix some of the problems that ail us. And it's not rocket science. It really is not. It's a matter of where our priorities are and how we wanna put time in as a community. So you're gonna hear from a group in a few minutes that volunteered over a year, trying to do some deep dive research in some of the issues that plague us. But I do wanna commend you, along with Mayor Pro Tem, about your handling of very angry people who were upset with you and your call on how you handled the protesters in the highway. And I got a lot of those phone calls, and also was able to see from one of our gubernatorial candidates his comments that the mayor, and referenced me as a he, I'm not a he. So first thing, when you run for public office, at least do your basic homework if you are going to be trying to be the governor of this state. Let's do a basic civic lesson. First of all, I'm not a he. Second of all, Durham County, Durham City, is about the 4th largest city in this state. So know a little bit about how we operate. We are called, and it's not unique to Durham, a strong manager-mayor system. The manager hires the police chief. She has a deputy city manager, and that person is Bo Ferguson. The Durham Police Department is one of many departments under his portfolio. The city council in Durham, North Carolina, governor, trying to be governor, the manager is responsible, and the deputy city manager and the police chief are responsible for the day-to-day actions of the police department. That does not fall under the jurisdiction of the mayor, this female mayor, or these council members. Does not fall that way. We are a policy-making board, and the day-to-day actions in Durham, North Carolina, for the police department fall under this lady right here, sitting to my right, Bo Ferguson, who's sitting over there, and the police chief. So anytime you tell me what I need to do, you better be ready to make sure that I can do it. So be careful. You ought to know what you're doing when you get in this arena and you're trying to be the governor, that you know what people can and cannot do. And I'm glad to tell you that. So, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
For all that you do, and any questions, he's free to call me. But get your information right. And you better know, I'm a female. I am not a he. I'm a she. Get that right, at the very least. Any other thing that I got to do today to do a civic lesson?
I have a question.
We do a basic lesson on civics. Oh my God. Okay, but anyway.
I just want to ask the media, did you all get that?
Please deliver it.
I hope he's watching.
That's my gift to him. I am not afraid to speak the truth. So know what you're talking about before you put something on my table for me to do. Know what my job is first. Thank you, Chief, for a job well done, to you and your team. We appreciate you all. Thank you so much. I wanted us to have this conversation about our first quarter, our first, what is this, our third quarter crime report, before we talk to some folk that I have a lot of admiration for, who've been doing a lot of work. And I'm going to move to the other podium because we have a little thank you for them. So when I first became mayor, there's a lot of stuff that comes at you about things that you can do and be involved in. But one of the greatest opportunities that the city of Durham has had was involvement with what we call the Bloomberg Harvard City Leadership Initiative. And Durham is a legacy city. Mayor Steve Schewel was invited to be a part of the first, I think he might have been a part of the 6th cohort of mayors from across the world, actually, who were invited to participate in a program started by former Mayor Michael Bloomberg. He was the former mayor of New York City. And he was able to put together some programming specifically geared for mayors and staff. And so we're the second year doing this, I believe. And the first year, we had involvement from city staff as well as Steve Schewel himself. And it's a really great program, they take you now. Bloomberg, you know, Michael Bloomberg is a billionaire, so you get the billionaire kind of treatment, and I'm encouraging, as we have our transition talk with our mayor-elect, I'm encouraging him to stay in that space, because not only do you get the billionaire kind of treatment when you go to these events out of town, you also get the best and brightest minds to help you think about what's going on in your city and what's happening across the nation, right, with other mayors. And mayors are kind of a unique politician, a brand of politician, because when we come together, you really don't talk about party lines. You know, being Democrat or Republican never has come in those conversations. We are on the ground, and we want to make sure that we are moving our cities along. So I have enjoyed my time with Bloomberg and the opportunities that they have given me. We just got back, myself and some city employees went up for a conference in DC, and we were treated royally for about 2 or 3 days and learned a lot. But as a part of that program, you also get to pick something that the mayor wants to do over a year's time, and they provide expertise to come in and help you figure out what that something is and how you want to solve it. So a lot of cities pick projects, you know, different projects kind of things. But me, you all know my background. I wanted to try to enhance what I call the not sexy work. And that is when you try to really get down into the basics of why things are happening, right? So we always talk about the root causes of crime. And I know that there are root causes, but we never really articulate how you expect people to navigate some of the issues that cause crime. And they're all interconnected. Housing is key for everybody. Everybody. And so when I thought about it, one of the things that I wanted to try to do to enhance our knowledge base and try to begin to pull together various pieces of information from our community, so that once the policymakers have that information, they are able to take that and then utilize that to create better policies, better situations where they can have this information available. And so I said, I really want to do concentrate on barriers for those who have been involved in the criminal justice arena. It's one thing to watch people pay or be punished for the crimes that they commit, and they do that, right? We have a system that does that. But what has actually happened in North Carolina and pretty much all over the nation is once you have some touch from this system of justice and it leaves a record, society punishes you further because you're not allowed to get housing, right? They ask about whether you have a prior record, whether you can, what that prior record was on most applications. And most people don't understand what that barrier is or how we overcome it. So we called together a group of people to kind of help us lead this effort. And they have studied this for about over a year now. And we have a lead from the city. We had 2 at the time that it started. Amber Wade was working as my assistant now. She's graduated and gone on to UNC to work over there. And Carmisha Wallace, our chief of staff, were the city contacts. And I pulled together some folk that I've been working with for a long time and asked them if they would take this ride with us. It required a lot of time. They committed to a weekly meeting for a period of time, and Ms. Wallace will tell you more about what they have been doing in her presentation. But I could not walk away from this assignment that I've had over the last 2 years without saying thank you to this group of individuals who gave so much. They gave the 5 hours plus of community service. They gave that. And they have studied this issue, and they come back today to present to you all some of the things that they found in their study of barriers for people who have a criminal justice background. And I'd like to recognize them. today on my final work session, because this is where my heart is. This is the passion for this work and for those young people and older people. Now we have people who are 60, my age, 60 years old, who've never been able to be on the lease, who've never had the ability to have housing in their name. And what does that do to a man when you can't be on a lease, or a woman? It cuts to the very heart of what you can be and do. And so for these people who have taken their time over these years, over this last year, and studied and come back with this report today, I just want to say thank you and be able to present this certificate of appreciation from the city of Durham for being a part of the Bloomberg Harvard Innovation Track Core Team. And they have been innovative. I don't know that there's any other city that has taken the opportunity to do this kind of work in the Bloomberg Harvard initiative. So Mr. Colin Davis, if you will come. And then if you stand right here with me, because I want to get a picture. Mike, birthday boy, can you get a picture of us when we get up here? Thank you. Ms. Roshana Parker. And congratulations, she has been elevated to a new position. She has taken the place of Gujan Palmer over, and the name has changed. We have a new director and we have a new name change. So what's the new name?
Justice Services Department.
Justice Services Department. So thank you, Sorrel. You're in good hands. Ms. Lamanda Pryor, who comes from a legacy of community activists. Her father, Harold Chestnut, has always been in my life, feel like. So thank you. Thank you. Ms. Adria Graham Scott with the city of Durham, who works really, really hard. She and her husband are definitely community activists, both on the job and off the job. So we thank you for you and your family, for all that you do for the city of Durham. Miss Sarita Hill. I met Miss Sarita when she first came to Durham with Step Up Durham, and it has grown so much under her leadership, and she's always been just so quiet, just a quiet mover and shaker. But thank you so much. Thank you for all that you do. Miss Bria Miller. She's not here. We give her thanks as well. And I can't remember what department she works for, but she's good. She's in the county, right? Mm-hmm. Miss Angie Weiss-Gamble. Okay, thank you. Give her a round of applause. I'm gonna hold Carmisha to last because she's the leader of this. Mr. Anthony Scott, DHA. And it has been my pleasure to work with Mr. Scott. You know, he participated in this initiative. He also brought to us PERC. You'll hear more about that later. Yep. But, and all the groundbreakings, he promised me a bunch of groundbreakings, and he has held to that promise. Without you, a lot of the housing issues that we face would be up here. But because of the diligence of you and your department, we see a lot of new growth coming into that arena. So I appreciate you, Anthony. Thank you. You've been so good in that arena. Amber Wade. Amber, who has been such a part of this initiative, even after moving on. She has maintained her contacts with Durham City. Thank you, Amber, for all that you've done and continue to do. My sister judge, Pat Evans, one of my best friends, my BFF. We have walked this walk so many times, so many years. What is it, about 40 years now, Pat? 1994. But everywhere I am, there she is. You always come through for me, Sissy. I love you. It's Emma Zuback. Emma is a Duke student who wrote me when I first became mayor and said, I want to work with you. I want to do something. And so Emma, I said, well, you know, we have this little project going on that I like for you to be involved in. And Emma participated. So she's a great young lady. She had a lot to offer, and we wish you the best, Emma. She's a great young lady. So give her a round, y'all. Probably in class. Mr. Dennis Garrett. Now, one of my ride or die. Now, he know the streets of Durham. Now, he did not tell a story about that. Love and respect over there on Angie Avenue. Dennis has been doing it in the community for a long time. He's one of those people that I can call and say, Dennis, this is what's going on. This is what I'm hearing. Make something happen, and he does it. He's responsible for bringing the reformers along with Judge Evans. So we had first-hand information on how things really happen for those who cannot find housing. And Dennis also has housing that he provides. So thank you, my brother. You always come through for me.
Who got a camera? I want to take a picture with her. Who got a camera? This is a lady. I want to act like I got you. Charles, I know I'll get it.
Thank you.
I thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, I thank y'all. Miss Stella Adams. Everybody knows Stella Adams if you've been around Durham and housing long enough. So Stella was a participant in this to the best she could. And we thank Stella for her hard work and dedication over the city for years. Steve Chalmers, my brother. Steve and I go back to the West End. We're church members. His family, my family are very tight. I can reveal all of that now. So, you know, Steve, you've always been in my life, you're like, so, and I can't think of a better role model with him and Pat and Dennis, of people who really know Durham, care about Durham, and put their time in. Steve been retired forever, but he's never been retired. He's always been on the streets of Durham doing something. So my brother, it is an honor for me to be able to say that you are part of my life.
Thank you so much.
You're a part of my life.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you. And the lady that held it together for us, Miss Camisha Wallace. Camisha came into this arena, and she's always willing and ready to lend a helping hand. And this was no small feat. She had to travel. They had to go to New York. And this is on top of all the millions of things she does as chief of staff in the city, right? So on top of that, you got a brand new mayor coming in and saying, can you give some more time? And it's a lot of time. It's not a little bit of time. And it's on this deep subject. And it's not the sexy work that you won't get the accolades for. You won't be on TV about it. And she said, without hesitation, I got you, Mayor. So to my sister in the fight, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. You brought us through. We did it. So can I get a picture? And then I think Commission's gonna lead the presentation, and she's gonna tell you all what they did. Yeah, we can come down here. This is the thing. Go ahead. Yeah. So proud of you.
That mural, it should be a part. It should get a.
We are broke, but life is good.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, members of the Durham City Council. My name is Carmisha Wallace. I am in the City Manager's office, and I am delighted to be before you today to share with you the great work. And Mayor, I want to appreciate you for I want to personally thank you for allowing me the opportunity to serve on this journey with you. I appreciate the fact that you were courageous and brave enough to do what you often refer to as pioneering work. You're absolutely right. This was a lot of work on top of what we all, those of us who are not retired anymore but are doing other things, doing it in addition to. So I won't be before you long. I am tag teaming today with Colin Davis from the Community Development Department. Colin and I actually coordinated our outfits. He didn't know that, but we did. So that's just how much time we spent together. Bloomberg required a time commitment. They did not provide financial resources to us, but they did provide a resource that I will share with you a little bit more. I do want to point out for the viewing audience, Bloomberg financed the work. So when the mayor talks about travel, it was at Bloomberg's expense. So I want to be very clear about that. So this was an excellent opportunity for us. I will be advancing through the slides today. So you'll see some of the pictures that we captured throughout this journey. Let's see. So Mayor spoke on this a little bit, but I'm going to share this for others just to make sure you hear this. I should have sound here. We did test this. All right, I'm going to keep it moving. But this, oh, he paused. I'll come back to this. Oh, you think it's my computer? Okay. I'll try again.
Hello, everyone. I am Elaine O'Neill, mayor of the greatest city in the United States, Durham, North Carolina. Hello, everyone. I am Elaine O'Neill, mayor of the greatest city in the United States, Durham, North Carolina. I am so excited that each of you have taken the time out of your busy day to join our team as we work together to solve. I've been a mayor now for a little over a year and a half. It's my mission to help make Durham a great place to live, work, play, and...
So, because the sound quality is not what I would like for it to be, that is a video that Mayor O'Neill provided for the group of participants involved in this work. Mayor has acknowledged our core team members, but just so that you can see the names, Stella Adams was representing In Poverty Durham. She was not able to join us today. Steve Chalmers with Hayti Reborn. Did I get that right, Chalmers? That's right, Hayti Reborn Justice Movement, along with retired District Court Judge Pat Evans, who you heard earlier today or saw. Angie Weiss-Gamble was with Duke, and Dennis Garrett, Love and Respect, Sarita Hill, Step Up Durham, LaManda Pryor with representing Partners Against Crime at that time, along with Emma Zubak that the mayor referenced. Bria Miller was not able to join us today. She's staff at Durham County Partnership for a Healthy Durham. Rashana Parker, you heard actually the organization's name, department's name has changed to Justice Services Department. Colin is a city employee. myself, Adria Graham-Scott from OAWD, but I want to give an extra shout out to Amber Wade, who was our project manager, who Amber was the taskmaster for us and keeping things going throughout this process. So definitely a big shout out to Amber. Also on the Zoom call today is Stephanie Wade. Stephanie is our coach from Bloomberg. Stephanie, if you're able to unmute yourself and turn your screen on so we can recognize you as well.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for including me today. It's absolutely thrilling to see everybody getting recognized for the incredible hard work, which I think is completely understated how hard this team had to work over the course of 9 months, 5 to 10 hours a week additional on top of their already demanding jobs, to really move this work forward, to apply innovation, to uncover some opportunities that the city has to improve lives for these justice-involved individuals. So I'm just so proud of everyone. I want to thank you again for your hard work and so excited to celebrate you. And Mayor, thank you so much for your participation, your dedication, your passion and support of this incredible work. So thank you all so much for having me.
Thank you, Stephanie. So Stephanie was provided to us by Bloomberg Philanthropies, as the mayor noted. And so Stephanie was our coach throughout the process. Mayor O'Neill also had a coach that was specific to the mayor. I will point out with the Bloomberg work, it forces members of the community, core team members, to think about things differently. As has been mentioned, we had weekly coaching sessions. Stephanie has gone all around the world as part of her work with Bloomberg, so many of our coaching sessions were virtual. We also had some in-person coaching sessions. She did conduct some site visits here in Durham. We actually had classes, and the classes were virtual classes with Harvard University. So when we talk about the time commitment, there were times where we were responsible for doing homework to prepare for the class, then take the class, and then homework after the class. And then we also had to meet with one another, meet with members of the community, getting feedback from members of the community, meeting with the staff, meeting with Stephanie as the coach, stakeholder interviews, which you will hear more about. So the stakeholder interviews were conducted via telephone, and many were in person as well. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Colin, who's going to give you a little bit more detail about the stakeholder interviews. I will say that in light of the problem or the challenge that Mayor O'Neill wanted us to do a deeper dive into, we identified 3 different stakeholder groups. And so Colin will walk you through the feedback that we got through the interview process with the respective stakeholder groups. Colin?
Sure. Good afternoon, Mayor, City Manager, Council members. I'm Colin Davis with the Community Development Department. We did stakeholder interviews with 3 key groups: those who were identified as justice involved, landlords, and service providers. And we learned a lot from each of those groups, and we captured several of the direct quotes in these slides. And to sum up some of the things we heard from the justice involved was putting people into housing without having the skill sets there to maintain the housing isn't helpful to solving any problems. If you don't know how to manage it, save money, and being able to have their credit fixed. This was something that came from somebody who's justice involved, saying, just don't throw me in a house without giving me some tools to maintain it. The other thing that was fascinating was the feeling that landlords have one bad experience and a bias forms, and it's taken out on the next person who has a similar background, assuming that that person is going to follow the exact same path. And that was hard to hear. It's hard to hear when people are feeling that they're seen in a way that is not necessarily going to be true for them. And then the other piece is all landlords require application fees. And those fees, the landlord keeps whether you're accepted for housing or not. And when you don't have a whole lot of money and you're applying for multiple apartments, it gets incredibly difficult and incredibly expensive to keep applying and keep being told no over and over and over again, where you become just disheartened and almost give up. We move over to the landlords, and what they were telling us is the market in Durham's great. I mean, look at the businesses coming here. We don't need to take vouchers. We don't need to take, people with less than stellar credit. We have plenty of people willing to rent at high rates. We have plenty of people that we can rent to. So why would we change our pieces to help? We want to help, but there's not a need to work and take vouchers at this point in time. And even when there's safety issues that are brought up or lease violations, landlords are saying it takes a very, very long time to repair that situation, to go through an eviction, to get through that process. And because of that, there's a hesitancy to take anybody with barriers, because if something goes wrong, not that it will, but if it does, it's a very long legal process to get through that at this point in Durham. When we talk about our service providers, there was a lot of feedback about the systems working in silos, and they're not easy to follow. They're hard to access because there isn't a cohesive, coordinated system. There isn't a one-stop shop, if you will. There was a discussion about how the homeless system is a coordinated entry. If you're experiencing homelessness, there's one phone number and you're routed. And the justice involved, there isn't that one number that you call and get routed. If you're justice involved, you might call homelessness and you might call somewhere else. So those are the highlights of these that I wanted to share. And I'm going to turn over to my esteemed colleague, Mr. Dennis Garrett, to talk about some of the themes and insights for further exploration. Dennis.
So again, I want to say thank you for the opportunity. We talked about the trust between the landlords and the tenants, right? And then we was talking about the support system. Like, we got a whole lot of different agencies that's not working hand to hand. Again, I keep talking about that personality getting in the way of the principle. The principle is that we got these JIIs that's coming in. And like Colin was talking about earlier, how the landlords are saying, well, we got this group, so we don't need this group, then we don't have to work with that group. But Judge Evans has a very dear friend or a very dear individual, Leah Bertman. Nobody said that. I want to put her name out there because there were some individuals that was straight out of penitentiary, straight off the streets, wanted to change their life, and Leah gave them an opportunity. And Steve Chalmers and maybe I'm off topic, but this is personal to me, so I might slip, right? Because I am a JII. I'm a dope fiend bum. Okay, Judge Evans, I can say that today. She don't like me to say that. But you guys, what we're trying to do is get y'all to understand that people like us do get an opportunity to change. And we can't change without the proper equipment. Like the chief was saying that, we got people that can do some stuff and say some stuff, but are we implementing that stuff? We can stand up here and talk forever, and you guys can act like you're interested, and you can be bored, but the attention is the crime in the streets, and how do we change it with the JII and the housing? Okay. Come on, help me, Commissioner. Okay. So the mayor challenged us as a group, and she said that she wanted us to come together and can come up with a support system that will help the individuals coming out of low-income development, housing, prison, jail, drugs, mental health. All of that play a part of that not being able to maintain an atmosphere of somewhere to live, or even how to talk to somebody to find somewhere to live. So the mayor gave us a challenge to come up with affordable housing and intervention from the streets. Can I talk my language? I don't know y'all language. To do something different, how we can do something different. That was our challenge. So Commissioner is pushing me. So the lack of accessibility, like we started with the lack of accessibility and the decent housing, but now we at a place where there's some collaboration going on, right? See, y'all call that downtown rejustification. We call it relocation, because we are pushing out those that don't have nowhere to go already. That's my personal observation. Anyway, come on, Commissioner, help me out. So the sessions that we held from May to June, we had a lot of different participants that came in. We all had different groups where we went out and we interviewed different individuals and different groups. Judge Evans and I had the criminals, and Steve and them had the housing component, and Anthony Scott left, but he played a significant part as well. But what we did is we built information to come back and tell you what it'll take to help those JIIs. Not just say, well, they need a house, they need a job, we already know they need that. How can we give it to them, right? So the one-stop shop model is what we kind of like leaning toward, because you can go to one place and get everything that you need to make you holistic, right? So with that being said, though, one of the other things we talked about was the peer support specialist, or whatever title you want to call it. What that is an individual that will come in for me and help me to fill out an application. And then once I get the house, it'll help me be eligible to pay my bills and show me, to keep me from being evicted, to show me how to maintain, because some things I don't know how to do. Like I might not even know how to fill out an application. So the peer support specialist will be the go-between the landlord and the individual to keep them on one accord. And with that being said, there's some other issues that got in the way. I'm kind of ahead of myself, but.
You're on Collins slides now. You've covered 3 of Collins slides.
On Collins slides.
But that's okay.
Well, come on here, Colin. No, but anyway, I want you guys to hear what I'm saying, right? And not just hear what I'm saying, but try to listen to what's being said. And what I'm saying is, like, people like me, without a person like you, Mayor, believing in me, you know. And I want to throw a hand out there to Miss Page, too, because she seen me out there, you know, when I was a knucklehead. So people like y'all that believed in somebody like me, that's all them guys is asking for, them JIIs, is for somebody to believe in them and give them more than just a sentence, a word, but an opportunity, right? So I'm asking y'all to follow up on whatever the mayor has started. Like this certificate, they ain't gonna do nothing for me, they ain't gonna pay no bills, but what it's gonna do is gonna give me some incentive to continue working with this group of unique individuals, and this group of individuals, because I met these people, I'm off topic, I'm sorry, but I met these people that I would never have dealt with. Like, I would have never been able to deal with Judge Evans. Like, I stand in front of the judge and she say, you're a Department of Correction, but now I get to stand beside him. You know, like, for real, like, I get to hang out with the chief, Steve Chalmers, like, and Colin, like you guys, this has given me an opportunity as a JNI to have hope for the streets, so I can go out and say, well, this is what they did for me, and they can see it, and now they be willing to have something done for them. But if we don't deliver, all we're doing is like contributing to the. I'm getting personal. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. No, it's up to you.
So part of our method to seeking input, we used a variety of stakeholder techniques. We didn't just have listening sessions where people talked at us or we threw out questions. We didn't do surveys. We used idea cards where we'd have something like a picture of Chick-fil-A or a picture of something, and tell us what you think about this, or if you were going to solve a problem, how would, if you were, you know, Microsoft, how would Microsoft solve this problem? It came up with creative ways for people to start thinking in different ways of solving problems, like Amazon. How would Amazon handle this situation? It's like, well, we would do it by this. So we did that. We did storyboarding, which is sort of a fancy way of saying basically like a comic strip. We kind of drew these things out in little comics to help map out things, to get input from stakeholders, to see how they would think and challenge people to think outside the box. Next slide. We had some additional ideas. Do you want to take this?
Okay, yeah. Okay, so I'm back on track now.
Okay, good.
Okay. So the Bloomberg has given us an additional 20 hours, right? So to fall in some other things that we didn't have a chance to collaborate on. But some things that stand out is like, number 8 is engaging with the legal aid. Like, we got a JII that's living in an apartment, and the landlord is giving us a chance to give an apartment. Then the legal aid will come in and divert them from paying their bills because of the whatever. So instead of them helping us to give the JII a place, they give the JII an excuse to not pay the bills. That's where the peer support specialists come in, and we don't use excuses, we get solutions, right? I hope I'm saying something y'all understand. And then to pursue the landlords that will give us JIIs an opportunity, right? So like Steve and I and the Bloomberg, we're talking about like starting in this place with Leah, and then you reach a tier and you move into another place. So when they move out of that space, somebody else can move in this place. So we gotta continue with them 20 hours that Bloomberg is giving us with the new team. So when the mayor leaves, he ain't really going nowhere. When the mayor leaves, we'll still be able to pursue how we can take these people off the streets. Because if you ain't got nowhere to live, then the poverty ain't just in your surroundings, it's in your mind, and now we got to change. So, Commissioner keep looking at me with them funny things, so I'm gonna let Colin come back up here.
So actually, I want to thank Dennis because this core team spent a lot of time together. We have developed relationships, and in many cases, our paths were already crossed, and in some cases, they had not. So we spent a lot of time working together, laughing together. We've had some very interesting conversations. But I want to acknowledge you, Dennis, for the work that you do day to day that doesn't occur inside this council chamber, that's not always on TV. But I also want to acknowledge that Dennis, along with Judge Evans and some others, including Hayti Reborn staff, which includes Lamanda and Chief Chalmers, were able to bring the justice-involved individuals. So when Dennis talks about JII, justice-involved or justice-impacted individuals, to the conversation. So Bloomberg, I refer to it as being Bloomberged. When you've been Bloomberged, then it forces you to not look at old problems the same way that you've been looking at them, particularly if you're wanting a different result or a different outcome. So this, and I have to acknowledge that Durham as an organization and as a community is not afraid to try different things. And so we were forced to have justice-involved individuals at the table, and Dennis played a key part in getting justice-involved individuals to the table, different races, different genders. They participated in every session that we had. They were represented there. They were able to bring in some service providers as well. So their voices are the ones that inform the ideas that you saw on the slide. So there were 10 ideas total that the community shared with us and the core team had. We tested too. Bloomberg work requires that you do a prototyping and a testing. So we went through that process. So we do have some other ideas that we have not tested. Dennis made reference to 20 hours. So we applied for and were awarded 20 additional hours of coaching. And so we had a little break in between there, but I guess we're getting ready to gird our loins and go, continue in the next phase of this work. So, Colin, I don't know if you had anything else that you wanted to add. Dennis covered pretty much all of our slides. So we really don't have much more to add. I definitely want to thank the core team again for the work, for your time, for your contributions. I had one last slide that has a picture of the mayor's coach. Mayor, I don't remember your coach's name here.
Yep.
Terrence. So this young man on the far left was the mayor's coach. And this is not everybody on the core team. And you will see in the background a screen. We use the water management facility, but Bloomberg introduced many of us to something called a Miro board. So the sound effects that you're hearing from the audience is indication that Miro board is not Microsoft Word. It's a little bit beyond that. But Amber was a Miro board expert, and we were required to engage one another by way of the Miro board. And so it was new for us. So this really got all of us out of our comfort zone. So again, Mayor, I want to thank you for the opportunity. I want to thank staff, Colin and Adria, and used to be Amber, for your fortitude and sticking with this. But more importantly, to the community, of course, the staff, it's our job, and we're committed to making it happen, and we want to do our best work. And I'm really looking forward. Many of the people that are here today have agreed to continue forward in the next phase of the work. So we're looking forward to that. Thank you so much.
Any questions, anybody?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate the presentation, and Dennis, for the work that you've all done. I know that this is just a small piece of what came out of it, and so I look forward to hearing more as we continue on, and just knowing that the legacy of our mayor, because she is Esther, it has been incredibly hard to process, and all of the love and kindness that she shares is not reciprocated in the same way. And I hope that she does get to see this come to fruition, because it is the work that she has poured in over 30 years in this city and county, and it is incredibly hard to sit here and pretend as if this couldn't be more, or pretend as if it would be. I know that there was a lot of barriers, and I'm hopeful that those barriers will be removed as we move forward. Otherwise, I know that I know how to turn over some tables, and I will be doing that to make sure that we continue this work. So I'm just going to hope that we don't have to do that. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, so much. Firstly, Brother Dennis, the line, I went from standing in front of the judge to standing next to the judge, may be the sound bite of the day, if not the month. What a beautiful sentiment. You a poet and don't even know it. Bars. Madam Mayor, I want to thank you for your involvement in the Bloomberg initiative. One of the things I've noticed, there's a certain swagger to mayors that have participated in the Bloomberg initiative. I mean, they're all impressive people, but there's a qualitative difference, and I've noticed it at different conferences around the country. Those mayors that have participated in the Bloomberg initiative, when they speak and when they engage in sessions, you can tell that they've had some stuff exposed, and they've been exposed, and their analysis is deeper, their perspective is just different. So I want to congratulate you and thank you so much, man, for continuing that tradition and put a little pressure on his honor in waiting. I hope that he will lean in as much with the Bloomberg possibilities and potentialities as this mayor has done, and such an impressive group of folk. I want to shout out Amber Wade in particular, because she was absolutely instrumental, and this is organic to what I want to say, in our work with guaranteed income, which focused on justice-involved individuals, and Sarita Hill as well. And I guess, Madam Chief, thank you so much for your presentation. My question is, what are the policy on-ramps for the council to build upon this work? I think guaranteed income, there's an organic on-ramp there with our focus on justice-involved individuals. That's policy that we've done. And I want to thank my colleagues for including $1 million in this last budget to continue our work with guaranteed income focused on justice-involved individuals. What are and I see some of the ideas, but as you see it, Madam Chief, or maybe anyone else, what are the things that we got a new budget cycle we're going to be starting soon that can concretize this work as a council to build I don't want this to just be a report on the shelf. Sure. What does that look like in your assessment moving forward?
So since the ideas were shared with the core team, we did a presentation, the core team did a presentation to the mayor and city manager in July. And so we did take a little break from the Bloomberg work, but the city manager and I have been in conversation around of the ideas, what are some of the low-hanging fruit? And we have worked to identify some of those things. Colin is involved with the homeless services systems. And so many of the barriers that justice-involved individuals encounter, homeless individuals and families also encounter. So we've identified some of the ideas that you saw on the screen that we can certainly connect with the work that Colin is doing already. Our relationship, the city's relationship with legal aid, that's an easy on-ramp for us, because we heard from landlords some of what their experience is with legal aid. We also heard from justice involved and service providers. So there are a couple of areas we've already begun that work to identify what are the areas that we feel like are easiest to tackle, but then what are some of the areas that are going to take additional work. We're not shying away from any of them, but recognizing that most of them will require partnership beyond the city. Many of the ideas involve nonprofits, service providers, Durham County as well. So we're certainly working through that process. And in the 20 hours of coaching, that's what we're going to drill down some more with our coach Stephanie to help sort through what are the things that we can tackle and what's going to be the strategy for going after them.
Right. Well, this is where rubber meets the road type work, and certainly exploiting the enormous resources that Bloomberg brings to the table, I think is just a win for our city. And I'm excited about doing the policy work, putting some meat on the bones of this remarkable work you're doing. So thank you so much for the work. Your Honor, thank you so much, ma'am, for leaning in on this, and I look forward to continuing the legacy. To Councilmember Freeman's point, this is, I think, why many of us ran for office, this type of stuff, this type of work, and we will definitely be looking at policy on-ramps for this work. It will not be abstract. Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem, Councilman Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, colleagues. When we have our votes and we go the opposite direction up here with the 4-3, a lot of folks create a narrative about it, and people talk about that or whatever. But behind the scenes, we have these relationships, and coming up really soon, Mayor O'Neill and I will be sitting down having a conversation. And one of the first things she said to me was, "All right, baby. Now listen, this Bloomberg stuff is really good, and you're going to have to make sure you take it on, all of it." And I was like, well, absolutely. So I'll tell you that little segment to let you know that this is a continuation. It's comprehensive. This isn't where, we stop everything that's happening and we start something new. I mean, yeah, I have ideas. There are going to be council members that have ideas, but I think it's really fair to say that our ideas are going to be building on one another. So the folks that are involved, don't get comfortable, because you're going to still have to work, and you'll have folks joining you with that. So as a matter of fact, I get sworn in on December 4th. December 5th, the next morning, I fly to Harvard, and I'm there all day Tuesday and Wednesday, and then Thursday morning, I fly back for the work session. That is how soon. Actually, my first task as the next mayor will be continuing this type of work with the Bloomberg Association and the new Mayors Association. So I love Mayor O'Neill, and a vote is a vote, but it takes a lot to stand on this dais and take the punches every which way they come. But at the end of the day, we are a team, and we're the team running the city. So I just appreciate the work that you all have done. It gave me goosebumps to hear you say that, Dennis. I used to stand before the mayor, and now I stand beside her. That is the evolution that we're thriving for. That is it. That is what we're shooting for. We're making sure that we are building relationships to where we make each other stronger. And that foundation we're standing on are the mistakes that we've made and the mistakes that we've learned from. So we can convert those into lessons, and we have a lot of work to do. And I look forward to continuing it. This is good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much, for this pioneering effort, and I know Leo will continue it. He's going to enjoy himself and all of the knowledge at Harvard. Ooh, they have a lot of resources that they give to a city, and they basically tell you, we will give you as much as you want. They have that kind of open door policy with all of their expertise, and so I am so grateful for the pioneering work that you all have done. I had hoped to be able to leave just pieces and tools that you can pull together. So the housing deep dive was one of them. This piece is one of them. The last piece that I hoped to do that we didn't get a chance to do was to do a roll call of all nonprofits. That's where you get a lot of your volunteers for. And the city government and all of our workers, we have a lot of bandwidth, but we don't have that type of bandwidth. And so the last piece that I hope to try to be involved is to figure out who's doing what, where across the city. And then with the other pieces, the housing deep dive, all of the good work that the community safety department is doing, we can begin to integrate it so that our policymakers have a clear picture of what the state of the city kind of looks like at an up close level. A lot of times we don't know actually what's going on in the streets unless you're out there making it happen. And I've missed that space. I'm going to go return to that space, but there's a disconnect a lot of times. So I think these pieces kind of bring it together and give you a foundation for the city to build upon to help our most vulnerable populations be able to live, work, and play. So thank you all for being a part of that. I'm so glad you all have 20 extra hours. Oh, man. So keep me posted on what's going on. Thanks, Carmisha.
Thank you,
I
Mayor.
really appreciate you for all the work, and Amber and all of the whole team. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Hey, can I leave you with one last thought? You was talking about the nonprofit organizations. Sometimes, like, nonprofit organizations don't have the ability to maintain their status because they don't file taxes, or you don't file in a certain amount of time. It don't mean that you're not doing the work. It means you didn't have nobody to help you do the work. So I really want y'all to take a look at the funding, who you fund. Do they gotta have, certain, like teach them how to get, and how to stay, because the work is being done, just the title says something different. I want y'all to hear me say that.
And that's so important because a lot of times that is where we miss a lot of it, Dennis, is that a lot of people run and they do a lot of the volunteer work, but because of the structures that you have to put in place to actually have a nonprofit, that in itself is a barrier. So, and that's some of the areas that we can work on, especially if you figure out who your nonprofits are that have done that successfully. You can begin to build some partnerships and help folks navigate how you get over those barriers. So thank you for bringing that point out, because it's important. A lot of people are doing the work, but they might not necessarily have the strongest administrative staff, but they know the streets of Durham. And so there's value in that, and we have to make sure that those who are doing that actually work have the support to get the work done. And that lack of administrative capacity doesn't become an impediment, which a lot of times it is. So thank you for bringing it up.
Thank y'all.
All right, thanks. And we will now turn to our first quarter financial report from Ms. Riordan. Item 22.
Okay, good afternoon, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of council. Christina Riordan with Budget and Management Services, and I am here today to provide you with our first quarter financial report, which is a report that we provide you 4 times a year with and prepare in partnership with our colleagues in finance. Just some reminders. This financial report happens very early in the fiscal year, and so there's still a lot of uncertainty that exists, and so I'll be talking a little bit about that today. And then also, as a reminder, I will be back in front of you in February to do our second quarter report. At that time, I'll have half a year's worth of data, which, and it will also be right in the middle of our budget season as well, too. So I wanted to start out our financial report, as I always do, with our general fund, which, as you are aware, is the fund where most of our departments sit. A few reminders about some of the numbers I'm going to show you today. Again, this is still our first quarter. It's early in the fiscal year. We only have three months worth of data. Some things that I wanted to point out. which is, as you know, our general fund. The two major revenue sources in that fund are our property tax, which makes up about 50% of the general fund budget, and then sales tax. Property tax bills were not mailed out during the first quarter this year, so we do not have, you'll notice that when I go through the revenue slides, so we do not have a lot of data on that as well, too, when we're making projections. And most of that property tax comes in December and January when tax bills are due, but this year the bills were mailed out a little later. Also, our first sales tax payment we do not receive that until October because sales tax is on a 3-month delay. At this point, we do have 2 months of sales tax. It is still early, and with only 2 months, we are down slightly from where we were last year at this time. We had collected about $14 million last year at this time, and we have collected about $13 million at this point. It is not something that we are necessarily overly concerned about, but it's something that we will be monitoring as the fiscal year goes forward. So this slide kind of just shows you kind of some really general information about the revenue sources in the general fund. The first is property tax, and as I explained, this is down significantly, about almost 89%, and that is because those tax bills went out so late. We are not concerned that there is a problem at this point with our revenue in the property tax collection. Occupancy tax there is good news with that. It is up almost 40% from where we were last year at this time. Our Powell bill, which is the money we receive for streets, is about where we were this time last year. Intergovernmental revenues are down significantly, but that is revenue we receive from Durham County, and so it mostly has to do with timing. We probably received some payments earlier in the year, fiscal year last year, as opposed to this year. And then charges for services, which are down slightly, about 25%. So this is a chart kind of shows you Q1 in fiscal year 24 compared to Q1 in fiscal year 23. And what you'll notice from this chart is the significant decrease in property tax. At this time last year, we had received over $17 million in property tax. And at the end of Q1 this year, we only had about $2 million. So I know that we talk a lot with council about fund balance. This is one of the reasons to have a very strong, healthy fund balance, because there can be dips in when your revenue is collected. So we expect to receive our property tax, but we aren't receiving it at the same rate that we were in other fiscal years. So. Okay, and this chart just kind of shows you the adopted budget, our activity through the end of the first quarter, and then where we project the end of the year. We are projecting that most revenue at this point will be coming in at budget, with hotel and occupancy tax coming in slightly above budget, and we expect charges for services to also come in above budget. Moving over to expenditures, looking at the expenditures, we expect that our expenditures will be $2.2 million less than budgeted. The majority of that is in personnel savings, which has to do with some vacancies we have at the city. We expect that to be $1.9 million, and then operating and capital costs, we expect to come under budget by about $304,000. And no departments are expected to exceed budget at this point. So this chart gives you an overview of where we are with expenditures from last fiscal year to this fiscal year. And what you'll notice is that we are, personnel spending is slightly less than it was at this point last fiscal year, but operating expenditures are higher than they were at this point last year. So last year at this time, we were about 18% of budget when we talk about operating expenses, and this year we're about 26% of budget, which is about a quarter of the way through the year. So this gives you, this is just an overview again of our personnel expenditures and where we expect to end the year. And then moving on to enterprise funds. The first fund I want to talk about is our water sewer fund. So overall revenues are at 26.2% of budget, and expenses are at almost 24% of budget, with personnel expenses at about 22% of budget and operating expenses at about 23% of budget. Revenues are currently projected to come in slightly above budget, and personnel expenditures are expected to come in under budget due to some vacancies in that department, and then operating expenditures are expected to come in at budget. So this chart gives you an overview of the revenues in the water and sewer fund, and as I said, those operating revenues we're expecting to come in slightly above budget. And then this is a look at the expenses in the water and sewer fund, with personnel expenses expected to come in almost $1.3 million under budget, which means that the fund would have a positive budget variance of about $1.4 million. Moving on to the transit fund. The transit fund is also expected to come in under budget by about $3.8 million, mostly due to savings in some operating contract expenses, which is due to some delayed service enhancements that they have, which is resulting from some of the driver shortages. This fund has several funding sources. It currently has some federal COVID money that it is still receiving, and that money will be phasing out in FY24. And then it also has state funding, which is expected to be approximately where it was last year at $3.4 million. And then it does receive a portion of the tax rate. So looking at the revenues, you can see that grant revenue is expected to come in slightly over budget. And then the intergovernmental revenue is expected to come in under budget. And that has to do with the revenue is only collected if the service enhancements happen. So when there's a reduction in service enhancements, then there is a reduction in the revenue that the fund would receive. And looking at the expense side, you can see that there is the operating expenditures are at about $4.3 million under budget, with a slight with personnel being slightly under budget at about $20,000. The solid waste fund, operating revenues are slightly less than they were in the first quarter of FY23, but the fund is expected to receive $12,000 more in operating expenses by the end of the fiscal year. Personnel expenses are expected to come in under budget by about $564,000, and operating expenses are expected to come in at budget. The solid waste fund receives the majority of its funding comes from tax revenue, and about 30% from operating revenues. So this shows you an overview of the revenues that I was talking about, with most of the non-operating revenues coming in at budget and operating revenues coming in slightly above budget. Looking at expenses for the solid waste fund, personnel expenses, as I said, are projected to come in slightly below budget, and also some of their capital, which would mean that the fund would have a positive budget variance at the end of the year of almost $1 million. The stormwater fund, which provides for the maintenance, for the management and maintenance of the operating expense of stormwater activities. This fund is self-sufficient and receives no tax support. And at Q1, it had received 27% of its projected revenues, which is slightly lower than it was at last time at this year. But the fund does project to come in at budget. And just a reminder that this fund is using some of its fund balance this year, largely for some of the capital improvement projects that they have. So looking at revenues, this operating revenues in the stormwater fund are expected to come in at budget. And then expenditures are coming in very close to budget, with operating expenditures at this point coming in slightly over a budget, about $6,000. Moving on to the parking fund. As you are well aware, parking fund, since COVID, has had some issues with operating revenues not covering operating expenses at this point. And so they do have a debt service. The debt service fund does provide or does subsidize some of the existing debt in this fund. And just a reminder that parking fees were increased in FY23, and operating expenditures and personnel expenditures are expected to come in slightly under budget. So moving on to parking fund revenues, operating revenues are expected to come in slightly under budget at about $500,000. And then expenditures are also expected to come in slightly under budget at about $200,000, which when you look at the revenues and expenditures would be a negative budget variance of about $334,000. The final fund I want to talk about is the inspection fund. And these revenues are currently projected to be at budget. And at the first quarter, the fund had received about 30% of budgeted revenues and spent about 20% of its expenditures. And the fund is currently projected to end the year with a positive budget variance. And of course, we will have more information as we move forward in our second quarter projections. So this shows you the revenues for the inspections fund, which we're predicting to come in at budget. And then expenditures with personnel expected to come in slightly under budget, which is due to some budget variances, or personnel vacancies. And that is all I have for the first quarter report, and I'm happy to take any questions that people may have.
Thank you so much for your presentation this afternoon. Are there any questions? All
Madam
right.
Mayor?
Uh-huh.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Christina. No questions, just thank you for the work. You hit the ground running in your position. I know that was assumed under challenging and difficult circumstances, but really been impressed with your leadership and the way you've taken the helm. Just one thing, on the general fund revenues, with that big red line pointing down property taxes, I know it's because we haven't collected them yet. I wonder if there's any other way that's more psychologically amenable that we can present that going forward, since we know that the money's coming. You don't have to answer that now, but just, yeah. Thank you.
It's coming. Yeah, we do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
And we will have more information at Q2 will be a much better place to determine how we're doing with property tax.
Maybe put an asterisk next to it or something. I don't know. Thank you.
Understood.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Anyone else? Yes.
I just want to kind of just put an asterisk by some of the red light items on the capital improvement plan as well, and just make sure if something's getting out of whack, just kind of put it on our radar to figure out how to address it before it gets, because what I'm most concerned about is that the cost doesn't go down. So if it's paused for cost and you're rebidding, the cost is likely to be higher. So I just want to make sure that if there's some financing conversations we need to have, that we have them. That's mainly the point. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I just want to briefly, before we go to our last discussion item, I think all of us probably got an email from our attorney, from some citizens who have been questioning our cell phone usage up here on the dais. And I want to say, for me, for the last 2 years, a lot of times you will see me on my cell phone because I'm communicating with, a lot of times, our clerk. And some of us up here also communicating with staff. We're trying to keep things going. So everything is not like we're up here playing with telephones. So let me dispel you of that. Some of us have conversations, but at the end of the day, most of the things that I've seen from at least the two people who normally sit beside me, including our city manager, is we're actually having conversations with staff and other people across and out that are actually out helping us to make sure that this meeting is going well, that it's, the technology is straight, that we're catching people who are raising their hand on Zoom. You see me a lot of times look over to our Mayor Pro Tem. So we're not just up here playing. So I want you to be very sure that most of us are up here being very, very diligent in staying focused on what's happening in the meeting. So as you see, I was sitting here now, I'm trying to get some information together for our last topic, which is a discussion on our city council procedures. Let me preface this by saying that I am by no means trying to personalize or make issues where there are none. But in this regard, we have a procedures committee. I think, I know Mayor Pro Tem was the chair of that when I came into this office. He's maintained his chairmanship of that. Also, Jillian Johnson, Councilwoman Johnson, is a part of that committee. And also, I think when Councilwoman Jose Hyman came in, I asked her to join that group. I wanted to tie this up as this, this is my last work session, but I wanted to make sure that we at least know from my vantage point where we have some gaps in terms of just closing some issues that have come up in regards to behavior of council people, and that gets real sticky. But business is business, and I do want to make sure that we are clear that there were some issues that had come up during my tenure, particularly in this last year, that we have not addressed as a council. As a result of some of that, I did ask our city attorney to prepare a white paper concerning some of our procedures around censure, around fraternization, around a number of issues that will come, that have come into play since I've been mayor. And she prepared she had a student who prepared a 23-page paper before we went out on summer break. I had asked them to do that, and then when we came back from summer break, she did pass that paper to us, and I have had a conversation with Mayor Pro Tem about us trying to tie up what I see are loose ends in this arena. He indicated to me that, his committee had really not met, and he's here to speak for himself, but that I would need to bring it back before the council to see where you all wanted to go with that. And since this is my last meeting, I felt like I needed to be able to articulate to you all my concerns about leaving those issues open. When she did the report, the law student did the report, she looked at a couple of different cities around us to see what their ethics and code looked like. And we're not in bad shape, but there are some gaps. And because of basically because of what happened with Councilwoman Jose Hyman, I entered into that arena because when it came to the censure that was proposed by Councilwoman Johnson, there is a requirement under our censure of different things that are supposed to happen, and the conduct that was being alleged to have occurred with Councilwoman Jose Hyman's purported, the censure that was being proposed for that conduct did not really fit the ordinance governing behavior of council persons in order to censure. As I read that provision, and it's only one provision, it talks about and contemplates behavior that happens outside of the council. I'm sorry, behavior that happens on this dais. And it kind of gives you direction as to what happens on the dais and how you're to deal with that, lays out a process. But it did not, in my mind, speak to the allegations that were being brought in this proposed censure. That censure did not pan out, but it was just left kind of open. And she has since been exonerated from all of those things that were coming up. There were two instances that were coming up in that proposed censure. One was the allegation that she had some type of inappropriate conversation with a city employee, and that was a part of that in terms of campaign, asking him to campaign on her behalf. The DA in her report, the SBI report, exonerated her from that. And she was also, as we all know, exonerated from the statements by the developer. And it was just kind of died, and nothing ever was done with that. And if you look at the other cities, there's a process by which you can bring closure to kinds of those things and not just let it hang out. On top of that, you had at least 3 other, and you all can correct me if I'm wrong, 4 other instances where the public was requesting from this council some type of action towards other council members for behavior that fell outside of the dais, and those were kind of left. We had a request from a citizen to censure, to censure or investigate Councilwoman Caballero purportedly on some allegations involving her husband and his involvement or not involvement with SCAD. And then you had another request from, I think, a citizen about soon-to-be Mayor Councilman Williams about something in terms of, what was the other one? I think there were some allegations of, that he was, the citizen was requesting a censure on that. And then there came a letter from one of his former employees that had some allegations in it concerning some things that had happened in his place of employment. And all of those things were kind of under, just kind of left hanging. And that is not good, in my opinion, for a public body not to have a way to resolve those issues and to have a roadmap on how you resolve those different issues. What happens if somebody has behavior off the council and we need to, and folk want to request a censure? What happens when the general public asks for a censure? What happens when you have something happening within City Hall that people are questioning, which would bring us to fraternization? You know, we've had some allegations that a council of persons have been involved with high-level city management in relationships. That can cause problems in terms of the Institute of Government if the relationship goes bad and the employee decides that they want out, and the city is now on notice that this relationship may actually be occurring or had occurred. So it's just stuff like that, that if you have rules in place to deal with those issues, it becomes easier to resolve them and move on. And it doesn't have and it's not personal, it's just business. Having been a judge for 24 years, 25 years, I understand that people get caught up in their feelings, but that doesn't not negate the need to have procedures in place to handle these situations, and that makes it easier when you have procedures in place that the council can go to and say, this is what we're gonna do in this instance. So I wanted to open that up for discussion because, we've had a couple of instances, even in our evaluations of employees, that matter changed. Now, is that a standard, or is that something you can do and you can say at the last minute, oh, we're gonna do it differently this year? Well, that needs to be clarified, because people shouldn't be caught off guard when you're thinking you're gonna come in and evaluate people one way, and then you come in and the evaluation has changed, and you have no knowledge of that. So if you are, like I just told the governor candidate, when you're in charge of these positions, you ought to at least have a roadmap on what you're doing and know what you're doing. And this area caused a lot of concern for me in terms of watching how that played out, particularly with someone who was later exonerated, and nobody from this council has formally offered her an apology, at least for that. But we were quick to jump on the bandwagon and say, let's censure her. And you didn't even follow your own procedures on doing that. That's a problem. That's a real problem, and that should not happen in 2023. You should have clarity on how your behavior is to be governed, and if somebody's questioning that behavior, there should be some due process things that are set in place to safeguard not only the city, but the individual that's being accused of behaviors. So that's me as a lawyer, and that's not a good space to be in. When I asked Attorney Rayberg to do this, it was, she said she was going to have a student to do it, and I know it was one issue that was tearing people up on the issue of fraternization. You got to deal with those issues. It's an everyday occurrence. People find love everywhere, but you have to be making sure that you govern that accordingly. So the student allegedly said at the bottom of the paper, well, now the city attorney's office has been asked several times about fraternization. Well, now how would the student know that? So you can see how it turns into something personal when you bring up these kind of personal issues. The city is a business. When somebody sues the city, they're coming for deep pockets, and it's not our money. It's taxpayer money. And we need to be making sure that we have procedures in place that when something goes awry between the 7 people that sit up here, there's a process that you can turn to, and it's not made up off somebody's head. It's there in black and white, and you follow that process, and you don't leave people hanging. We have left all of those people hanging that I have mentioned that have asked us to take some type of action against another council person. We just need to have a process to say it's done. Whatever that process is, it needs to be illuminated. And you can't just leave this lady to leave off of this dais after almost watching her life be destroyed. And you feel good about having that open and never saying anything about that or bringing it to closure when you were so quick to punish her. Where is the right in that? Where's her due process rights for what happened to her on this council by members of this dais? And that triggered a response from the community. So, and I'm not willing to go off the record on that and leave this place without that being said. That needs to be done, in my opinion. Anybody else want to talk about it other than me?
Madam Mayor, I'll respond. Thank you so much for the list of things that you brought to our attention. I'll start by saying the letter also exonerated the council for any inappropriate collusion or actions towards Councilmember Hyman. I think that's, we want the rain without the thunder. I think it's important that we include that also was in the letter. Just a couple of factual statements about the Procedures Committee. When we were elected in 2021, I actually assumed the chairmanship at that time. And at that time, the listed members were you by virtue of being mayor, Councilmember Johnson, and myself. At a meeting, Councilmember Hyman actually asked about attending the meetings or being a part of it. And at that time, I said that, of course, all members of the council are welcome to attend the meetings, which she was. That was not placing her on the committee because that would have made 4 council members on the subcommittee, which would have been quorum. The purpose of the Procedures Committee was to have not cross the threshold of quorum, but to have 3 members to talk about recommendations and then bring them back to the council. It also should be said, Your Honor, that the Procedures Committee is not a creature of the mayor or of any one particular council member. The way the Procedures Committee is triggered to action is that the council charges the Procedures Committee when they think that there's a substantive question or a threshold has been crossed. To citizen-generated action on the Procedures Committee, respectfully, citizens are not members of the council. So there's never been any requirement on the council because a citizen says, I want to censure a council person. How do I do that? I mean, it's kind of like we don't have procedures for students to initiate tenure. We don't have procedures for regular citizens to initiate draw up impeachment articles. You have to be a member of the body. And actually, it's really quite easy for a citizen to initiate a censure of a council member. All you have to do is get one council member to agree with you. And because any council member can put in a resolution for censure. The threshold, so you don't really have to even work that hard. If one of us thinks that another council member did something censurable, for example, something happened a little while ago where many members of the community said that I probably should initiate some procedures for censure. And to be quite honest, I think that if I had worked really hard, I think I could have gotten the votes for a censure, or even worse. But I thought that we were doing the humility and kindness and peace thing, so I thought in the best interest of the city, we would just move forward. So I didn't seek that. So because a citizen wants another member of the council censured, that's not the threshold for the procedures committee to have a meeting. Citizens ask us for stuff all the time, ordinances, all kinds of stuff. So simply asking for it does not obligate the council. The way the procedures committee is, a majority of the council says, we want the committee to investigate this. With respect to the censure of Councilmember Hyman, I think it's important to say that, in fact, Councilmember Hyman was not censured. It was contemplated, which is the prerogative of any council member to contemplate something. And the item that you speak to in the Procedures Committee, I think it's 2.14, which contemplates censure. It says if the action occurred on the dais. It is not an exhaustive list of, and our Procedures Committee is not an exhaustive, comprehensive list. It's not a shall document. It's a document that helps us proceed, but there are a number of examples that aren't covered by our Procedures Committee, Procedures Manual, that does not preclude it occurring. For example, thumbs up is not in the Procedures Committee. We have a council manager form of government, and usually in those form of governments, the mayor doesn't get to unilaterally issue keys to the city. It's a council vote because it's not a strong mayor system. We don't buck against that. We haven't, come against that. So there are any number of areas that have been established as council norms and practices that aren't explicitly spoken to in the Procedures Manual, but does not preclude us from doing those things. So 2.14, and folk can read it, you can go on the website now and pull it up, does not preclude the council from contemplating actions outside of the dais. What it says that if it occurs at the dais, here's the process for that. But it is well within the purview of the council to contemplate a censure for, I think it says extreme or egregious, whatever the language is, activity, wherever it occurs. But if it occurs on the dais, and again, you can read the language, then here's the process. So there was no violation of the procedures rules at all. We issue resolutions all the time as a council member. Any council member, again, any council member who thinks that one of us did something censurable, you're free to come up with the resolution and enter it. I will also say as to what happened to the censure, and I think I mentioned this just to you in private, Your Honor. Councilmember Hyman, what happened to your censure is we had a private meeting one night. There wasn't 4 of us there with a prominent member of the community, and I looked across the table and said, no, it's not. She's not going to be censured. I'm not going to vote to censure her. Others were there because it wasn't in the best interest of the city, and the votes weren't there. That's what happened to the censure. Now, we know that, and for it's the council's prerogative not to follow through on a censure. So on the evening after the work session, when it was on the agenda, or when it was supposed to be on the agenda and it didn't show up, the reason why it didn't show up is because we looked across the table at a meeting where some prominent members were there. Her Honor was there, I was there, and I looked across the table and said it's not going to happen. That's what happened. And so it did not come up. And that is well within the purview of the council. The council giveth resolutions, they taketh them away. So again, that's not a violation of our procedures. And finally, because citizens want us to do something, and you say it's not personal, but for some of us it feels very personal. It seems like there are a group of citizens that have captured the imagination and attention of members of this council to the point where they actually say the same things from the dais and the audience, that seem to think that because they have a neat idea on how government should work, that the whole apparatus of government should somehow bend towards their will. That is not the way it works. If you want a council member censured, just enter the resolution and get the votes. So that's the process. If I want a president impeached, I write to my congressperson to ask them to do the articles of impeachment. I can't submit articles of impeachment. They're the council procedures. So, you know, and I think we all have our supporters. We all have the people we listen to. We all have our friends. We all have our cheering sections. We all have our echo chambers. But because they think that that's the way government should work, doesn't mean that that's so. So, and I can remember when Councilmember Reese chaired the Procedures Committee, I remember a grand total of 1 Procedures Committee, 1. At that, I remember we discussed the term residents versus citizens. There was a council travel policy item on the agenda, and there was supposed to be a follow-up, I think, meeting for that. It didn't occur. You know, Councilmember Reese went on, you know, to move for personal matters. When we got so there was, the Procedures Committee was kind of in limbo. But so when we came in, I assumed the chairmanship. And Madam Mayor, as to the matter of fraternization, the attorney and numerous times have spoken to the absence of a policy. Now, if the council wants to adopt a policy moving forward, that's on the council. But because it's non-existent, or because we did not hear the answer we wanted to hear to a question, or it doesn't comport with our views or whatever, doesn't mean that the council procedures are deficient. I know with many council members here that the argument about waiting for a new council to look at SCAD resonates with you, or punting down SCAD. If you think it's a good idea for us to have waited on SCAD, then how much more so does it make more sense for this council to wait for the next council to deal with a matter that is fully about the council, whereas SCAD is something that falls into the realm of governance. This is just purely council stuff, and we're a lame duck council by our own admission. So if the next council wants to look at all of that, you know, all of that list, that's fine. But there was no violation of procedures. And finally, you know, the suggestion that we apologize to Councilmember Hyman, again, suggests that it tries to raise the specter and implicate that there was collusion for which we were also exonerated by the same letter that exonerated her. I'm going to apologize because Councilmember Johnson wrote up a resolution for censure. That never happened. That's her right to do that. Am I going to apologize because I was at a meeting with prominent people and that you were at, Your Honor, and made the censure go away in the interest of healing the city and moving forward? What is there for me to apologize about? I didn't make the charges. We're more mad at each other than the person that actually brought the charges. We've been tearing each other apart and not doing a whole lot of talk. I sat at this dais and said, when that letter came out as part of my announcements, how pleased I was for her and her family, and I said I was ready to bring the wrath of God down on the guy who made it. That's what I said publicly. So should I have added, I'm sorry? I did say I'm sorry that she went through that. I've said that to Councilmember Hyman privately, and she has the text messages, and I've said it publicly. But I apologize because somebody wrote a resolution, apologize because somebody made up a story about us and repeated the story and repeated the story and repeated the story, and 12 people with 35 followers on Facebook kept repeating the story. It doesn't make it true. So what do we apologize? I am grateful to God that she was exonerated, but I didn't do anything. We didn't do that. And people, and the same letter that exonerated her exonerated us. So that's all I have to say about the procedural aspects. There was no violation of procedures. 2.14 says if it happened at the dais, but it also allows for the contemplation of behavior outside of the dais.
For which there's no procedure outlined on how you deal with that, which is my point. So
we do have a procedure.
I differ on a lot of things that you have said, but I respect your opinion, but that is not my opinion. The first one is that I'm an independent thinker. Mm-hmm. I've always been there. So if my words resonate with other people, that's because we might think alike in certain instances. That's true with everybody up here. There have been some times that I've agreed with just about everybody up here on different things. So I am a very independent thinker, have always been. So I don't pick up on messages and then make them my own because that's the echo chamber I want to create for myself. I ain't ever had to do that. Not gonna start it at 6 to 1. So I take issue with that. I also take issue with the statement where you're saying everybody's mad at each other. I'm not mad at you all. You do what you do. It's not personal. It felt personal to her, what happened to her, but for what has happened to me, I volunteered for this job. I did not understand all that it would intake, and I don't particularly like some people, but that's not gonna keep me from doing my job, right? So it doesn't become personal for me in that range, and I've had the experience of having to deal with that in most of my jobs, where personality just couldn't enter into that space. So I'm very concrete about my ability to be an independent thinker. The second thing is that I take an issue with is the sentence that you ride on that you were exonerated. Having been a part of that process, I have questions in my mind how that sentence ended up in there, right? Because I know for sure, like you said, there've been some private conversation, but when this hit the news, when Kim Rayburg sent out that memo on Monday afternoon at 4 o'clock as I was traveling back from a funeral, and I got it, and I talked to her and I asked her, what is this about and who are you talking about? And she said, I'm not gonna tell you that. At the same time, you called me. And during that time, you told me who it was. By initials, you told me who it was, and also, you had a process by which we were going to try to deal with that. And I told you I wasn't gonna do that. And I won't get into all those details, right? So it wasn't, I'm not gonna get into all those details of have a back and forth. I'm just telling you, from my vantage point, and from looking at the other ordinances by city, there are some processes that I believe that I hope the next council will fill in so you don't have these issues. If a citizen, it's who each and every citizen should have a way to get to this council about any kind of issue, and they do. You know, but if it's something where it requires a move of the council, as you're saying in the terms of getting a censure, where is that in your process? Where does it say that a private citizen who is seeking some relief, a censure or some type of action by the total council on an ethical violation? These are not new things. They happen all over the country. It's nothing new, but where's your process for that? Where's your process that said, because they shouldn't have to guess. This is a governing body, and a governing body should have rules that indicate, it's just like, as a judge, we have a judicial code of ethics, and we have a whole commission that governs that behavior. Same thing for lawyers. And it gets revised and updated, and you keep on as times change, needs change in that arena. And I don't understand that pushback, unless you don't like rules and ways to let people know how, if you violate a rule, you have these due process rights. If you're on the other end of that, you should have a process for being able to get that issue before your governing body. This is taxpayer money that we deal with. It's not our money, and we can't run it like we run our house, like you tell us. And most households have rules, and you know what those rules are. In a governing body, it should be the same. It's not personal. It's a business. And we're dealing with other people's money. Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate that you're highlighting the gaps, so to speak. And I do appreciate in trying to keep it in very business context. What I will say is that I think in addition to fraternization and conduct on council or off council, there's a gap in workplace harassment on this dais, just acknowledging that Councilmember Hyman was being bullied. And that still has not been addressed. And for the person who was bullying her to say that they don't owe her an apology is is very unsettling. And I can feel myself getting angry just hearing it again. I know that there should also be a policy in addressing disclosures. Those things need to be updated. And I hear Mayor Pro Tem and saying that, you know, you took the gavel in 2021 and you may not have been prepared. But after March 2023, I don't see how you couldn't have thought that there should be a meeting to come up with something, because those areas are gaps and we do need to address them. And whether it's this council, the next council, or whomever, I'm going to hope that there's some relief for future councils, because these are things that other councils across the country have in place and we do not. And that is what is highlighted in the city attorney's report, essentially. And so just taking those few items and making sure that they move forward is enough. We don't have to keep going back and forth. I do think that to just be very clear, trying to rewrite history and trying to make yourself look favorable to the public is not acceptable in this space. It's just not. You committed a crime, and you need to be really upfront about it. And I'm really just so sick of you trying to pretend like you didn't do it. That's first. And then second, to the point that none of you have apologized to Councilmember Hyman, it is disgusting, again, which is why I said it that night, and I'll say it again today. It is still disgusting because you ruined her life. You tried to take her out, and she stood in the face of it. And the fact that there were elders in the community who had to call you to task on it is just so upset. Like, really? That's what made you step back from a resolution instead of calling her? I'm troubled by this conversation. I'm very triggered because I have faced domestic violence. I have faced just personal violence, and I refuse to deal with that here, which is why I brought it up before to say that we've got to get someone to come in here, because it is not okay to be bullying your colleagues. It's just not. And you have to stop. It's unacceptable. And if you can't hear that, I've said it to you as a sister, I've said it to you as an enemy. I've said it to you a number of times, and I am tired of saying it. You have to stop. It's not okay.
Councilmember Freeman, the people of this city have seen.
I think it would be appropriate to have the conversations with a facilitator, because it is not going to work today. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to get upset, and it's going to get violent.
Are you going to hit me again?
I never hit you. I never hit you in the first place. And the fact that you lie like that, and you lie with a straight face as a pastor, is disgusting. Wait a minute. It continues to be disgusting. I don't know how you even caught, like, what are you doing? A man in the community. A man. A black man.
Wait a minute.
Can I please?
Javier have the floor. We're going to do this peacefully. This is not going to turn into that. We're going to do this peacefully. Councilwoman Caballero, Councilwoman Jose Hammer, and then we'll come back to you, Mayor Pro Tem. And we're going to do it peacefully. This is an adult situation. So we're going to act like that, and we're not going to get into that. You just can disagree, agree to disagree. We're not going to be disagreeable. I get you.
But
She's not departing without hearing. This woman, she just accused me of a crime on the dais.
Hold up.
Stop committing the crimes.
Deidreana, hold up. Councilwoman Javier.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate your comments about how the procedures need to be updated. I appreciate what the City Attorney's Office provided us in the summertime. As a council member who will be here next round, I look forward to being a positive member of the board and adding what we need to add. Honestly, Councilmember Freeman is leaving. The hour is late. I don't really know how this conversation will be productive. Thank you.
And I agree. I'll let Councilwoman Jose Hammer has the last say. And that's all I'm trying to say. Thank you, Councilwoman. And then you'll get I thank you for that. It's just that at certain times you need to just update it to conform with what's going on. We had a lot that happened last year. And so, you know, we were all kind of wrestling with how to deal with all of it. And I don't want those things that have been come to us that point to you, and you're not given an opportunity to address that. That's not fair. There has to be a procedure to deal with your due process rights and what these citizens are saying. There needs to be a process for that. That's clear, and it can close it. Councilwoman Hosenheimer.
So, you know, what I'd like to say is it's still very troubling to me. And every time we have this conversation, my husband had to leave because he just does not want to be here, because I've had to calm him down several times, especially watching his wife go through what I went through, and especially, as he said, having to deal with not just, you know, black men sitting up here, but just men in general that he also had respected. But for me, I'm just still troubled because it has affected my life. While I'm not going to be on this council, I still have to go on with my life, and I still have to deal with that, right? And so the statement that was made in the report from the DA, which it says, additionally, there was no evidence that there was coordinated evidence led by the council members to initiate allegations against Hosley Hyman. You did not initiate the allegations. It was a builder by the name of Jared Eden that actually said it to a city staff member, then went to the attorney, then went to Mayor Pro Tem, then went to the mayor as the last person, and then I was, well, not the last person, because I was the last person. And to this day, actually, really no one asked me about whether I had did it or not, except for Mr. Williams, who texted me the day he was at a forum. And I said, no, that was not something that I did. So it's still disheartening to me that you, just as from common humility, for what I have been through, for what I told you I've been through, for what my family been through, that you would not say, you know what, sister, we apologize for you going through that process, right? And it's disheartening because when I put my name in the hat to be on council, I really, really wanted to come and help the people of Durham. I really did. And I really had a great respect for all of you up here. But I'm hoping and praying that you do look at the policy and procedures, because in the procedure that I read, it does say that somebody being sanctioned is based on your behavior up here on the dais. That's what the policy says. So there was no policy in my sense, in what I went through, that was followed, because I was interviewed by the FBI, the SBI on allegations that was a he say, she say. And none of my colleagues chose to say, okay, let's have a conversation with you, but what we're going to do is we're going to send it to the SBI. And when you send something to the SBI, and the FBI also gets involved, that's something I've never been through in my entire life. I never thought at 58 years that I would even have to go through something like that, because my life, while I have not been perfect, I have prided myself on ethics and integrity. There are certain situations that I didn't get to because I was told, you can't get to this high level because you have too much integrity. And then to come here and that to be questioned. And then for me to try to stand, because it was also told to me that people on this committee, this council, wanted me to resign. And if I resigned, the allegations went away. And I contemplated that. I really did. But I said, you know what? I know I didn't do anything, and I'm going to try to stand. And every time I came in here, it was hard. It is even hard for me now. It was even hard for me to try to run a campaign. I couldn't raise any money. I couldn't keep a team because of these allegations. I had team members that were with me that left my team and went to Leonardo Williams' team, right? Whatever people do, they do. But I want you to understand, and I know you don't care, because I could, again, it's like a re-traumatization of me looking at the meeting on 3/23, which I could not look at. And if you look at the meeting on 3/23, it is obvious that it was, to me, set in motion to get me to leave this council. Look at the meeting again. I could not look at it, but I've looked at it, and it was obvious. And there was a meeting that you said that you had with the community and prominent community members that asked you not to do this sanction, but why wasn't that discussed among us? Why wasn't I invited to that meeting? Why didn't somebody say to me, Dr. Hyman, did you do A, B, C, and D again? And so it's just really disheartening. Like, I am so disheartened about my experience here, but I will tell you what I'm not disheartened about. I'm not disheartened about the fact that I tried to fight for the people of Durham. I'm not disheartened by the fact that people have emailed me continuously throughout this month and said, Dr. Hyman, you've handled this with grace, with leadership and integrity. And I didn't think at times I was doing that. This has been very hard for me, and it's still very disturbing to me for us to get to a point that you have to have these arguments and you can't have a conversation. And the last time the argument blew up with this, it all going on in media, which affected Ms. DeJohn and Mayor Pro Tem's situation on whether somebody hit somebody, whether somebody did. To me, I've never thought that I would be in a position like this of the level of power that you say, Mayor Pro Tem, that this body has. We left the last stop. And the level of unprofessionalism and disregard for common courtesy for one another. I thank God that I was able to serve with the mayor, Mayor Elaine O'Neill, because I don't think I could have got through this without her. I don't think I could have got through this without DeJohn Freeman, which people, you know, have your opinions on. But people on this council wanted me to resign and said, if you resign, it'll go away. In the statement that the lawyer made, the Attorney Rayburn, and I couldn't even look at it, but I have had to look at it because I've had to turn things over to the FBI and SBI, when she made the statement that basically I was guilty. The statement in her memo said that it didn't seem in her purview of dealing with a builder who has come before the council that he would come up with any force or malice intentions of an allegation. And you know what, Mayor Pro Tem, I respect the fact that you said, let's hold this man accountable. But nobody else on this council have said, and you haven't held him accountable, because guess what? His projects are gonna come before here. They've been coming before. He's now changed his name. He's not the one bringing them in front of you, but some other people are bringing his projects in front of you. And I don't want anybody to be able to come up and say, you know what, Mayor-elect Leonardo Williams, an allegation against you. Or you know what, Cabriere, an allegation about any of you. So I still have that heart to make sure, and you can side, Cabriere, because at one point when we was on the trail, you were real nice, and now you go back to your nastiness, but it's okay, that's just who you are, because now you're elected. But what I'm saying is, I don't want anybody else, you could care less about me, but I don't want anybody else to go through what my family went through, what I went through, and what I have to continue to go through in trying to start my life again. I'm a professor at North Carolina Central. I could not go up I was going up for early tenure. I didn't even choose to do that because this was out. I don't know what's gonna happen with me trying to go up for coming up in my regular time. Whatever opportunities that I would like to have done, things were taken from me because of this. And you have the sense to say, we don't wanna apologize? No, you didn't start it. But all of you voted on it, and you pushed it to go to the SBI. And I'm gonna say another thing with this statement in this report. You keep saying that you were exonerated. Well, I don't understand that because not one of you were interviewed, but I know who was interviewed. And I know the questions that were asked. And not one of you were asked whether or not you had a part in this process of these allegations. So this statement to me, which I've already said to the DA, is a little troubling to me, but she's the DA. I'm just going to continue to try to do what I do, which is pray for all of you, because during these 9 months, I still try to pray for you. And I think you feel that you've arrived because now you're in these positions. But I've also always said to Mayor-elect Williams that I felt he had a heart and he had some humility. And I hope that he continues to try to have that. I hope. And serve the city and work with the people of Durham. And I just don't want anybody to ever go through anything that I went through. And it's just disheartening that even in my last day, that you will still have this argument and you still would be making faces and you still would be, I gotta go, with what my life was through. I had so much respect for all of you. I just don't understand that. I always question why God allowed me to go through this? That's my question to me now. What was the purpose? What was my lesson in this? Because I didn't come in to have this go. I came in to help. And so I'm pondering, I'm going through this now. I tried to run a campaign with integrity, and I could not do that because of these allegations. Well, I had the integrity, but I couldn't get the support that I needed. I want to thank all of the residents in Durham that gave me those 12,000 votes. I want to thank you. And I want to thank you for the ones who continue to send me emails, even as of yesterday, about how I've handled myself. But I'm disheartened still that we are at the point now, with everything that I've been through, that we are arguing among each other, and we're making faces, the same faces in the arguments. I just hope the new council that comes on, I hope y'all do different, because Durham deserves better. They do. I don't even know what else to say.
All right.
Councilmember Hyman, thank you so much. And as I said, I apologize for what you're going through, and I'll do it again publicly. I also want to thank you for what you didn't say here today. Councilmember Freeman, in an open setting on this dais, said that I was bullying you. And I want to invite you, Councilmember Hyman, to release every message, every email, every text I've ever sent you. At no point since you arrived on this council have I ever had one conversation with you about the way you voted or the way you were going to vote. I have never come to you and asked you to vote a certain way. I have never questioned you after you voted. I've never sought to influence your vote in any way whatsoever. We don't hang out outside of meetings. We don't break bread. We haven't, had any social time. So I invite Councilmember Freeman or anyone else who has once again put out this canard about me bullying folk that the people of this city have rejected squarely in this last election. Release any text message that was bullying. Recount any conversation I've ever had with you where I said something untoward because of the way you voted. Tell me one time. Other people have tried to get you to vote a certain way. Tell me one time where I've ever had any conversation with you or tried to influence you since you've been on the council. And I invite that to be out there. It is a lie. It was a lie when it was not from you. What Councilmember Freeman said, it was a lie when it was first told. The people of Durham saw through it and rejected it. I also want to say to you, sister, that I've never come to you and said that you should resign. You said people have said that if you resign, it'll go away. I don't know who those council members are, but I wasn't one of them. What I did have as the number 2 in this city, and the number 1 and number 2 of any organization ought to be able to have confidential conversations. I went to Her Honor in confidence. Her Honor will remember the conversation, called her, and I said, Your Honor, if these allegations are true, then she should resign. As you should, Mayor, and as I should. If we tried to sell our vote, we should resign. Here's what else I said. If it's not true, I'm ready to, I want her to come out and say that that man is lying, and I am ready to go to bat for her and bring war to him. But we need that statement. That's the statement. That was a statement in confidence. You never heard me say that to you. I never came to you and said you should resign. That was a privileged conversation between the number 1 and 2 of a city, which leaders do all over the world all the time, should have that space to have those kind of conversations. I called for ShotSpotter. That made the news. I called for guaranteed income. That made the news. When I call for something, it's out in the media. No one ever called for your, at least I didn't. I never called for your resignation, because if I had called for it, it would have been a matter of public record. What I did have as the number 2 of this city was a confidential conversation with the principal of the city to discuss and war game a scenario. That's the only time the word resign ever came out my mouth. Never had a conversation with you about your votes. So this line that keeps being pushed, again, which has been squarely rejected by the people of this city, again, is still being pushed. And I would just say this in conclusion. I think we have to be very careful, sister, to if there's a hole or weakness in the DA's letter on one side, then somebody might come and say, well, maybe the investigation wasn't that good on that other side as either. Maybe it wasn't an exoneration. Maybe there just wasn't enough evidence. Maybe she's not innocent. Maybe there just wasn't enough evidence to prove it. So I think that if we're going to celebrate the letter, which I did, it kind of compromises the integrity of the letter by saying she did a good job on this part that's good for me, but she didn't do a good job on this part that's good for the other folk. And I just want to...
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm finishing. So again, I released the text. I give you permission to release every conversation, every text, every phone call, every email I've ever sent to you, to put it out there and show where I've bullied you or show where I've shown anything other than concern in an attempt to get through this really ugly process. I have apologized for what you've gone through, but I can't pretend that I was part of something cooking this up, because I wasn't. And that's just the fact.
And I know we want to leave, but what I want to say is, again, I am not digging deep, as you say, Mayor Pro Tem, holes in the DA's statement. I'm not doing that. What I'm saying is what I went through. I know who was interviewed. I know the premise of the interviews. And the interviews were not based on whether you colluded as a council to do this against me. That was not the interviews. And I know the people who were interviewed, right? And I know the premise of, so I'm not digging a hole in her report. What I'm saying is that, no, maybe you did not come up with the allegations, but there was a builder that came up with the allegations that brought it to the council, and the council decided to move forward with it prior to even asking me about whether I did it or not. And I wish I would have known that you said I need, because I kept saying I didn't do it. And nobody moved on it. What they moved on was, we're going to send this to the SBI. So there was a time when I said I did not do this. And I clearly said it to my Mayor-elect Leonardo Williams, who clearly texted me and said, Dr. Hyman, is this you? And I said, no, I did not do this. And he said, okay, let's stop texting. He did ask me that. So there was conversations with him. And the mayor knew that I said I didn't do it. So we can go back and forth. I'm not bringing up the bullying situation, because that's not something I said today. What I did say in my statement at this dais was that you did, while nobody else came except for Deidre Freeman and the mayor, when I did have my press conference, you did text me before I even knew that the report was out. I was at Central. You texted me and you said, I'm glad that this came out. I'm praying for you. And you have been doing that ever since. So I didn't bring that up today. What I'm bringing up is the issue of how I went through and how I was treated. And I know people don't, I know the city is tired of it. I just want y'all to go on, and I just want you to serve the people of Durham. And I just don't want people to ever have to go through this again. And if you have any kind of spiritual sense in your being, understand what I went through. Understand what I still have to go through, and why my husband had to walk out this door. Understand that.
All right, we will now turn to our clerk for any boards and commissions.
Good afternoon, Council. Item 1, Participatory Budgeting Steering Committee appointment. I have a tie from Council when it comes to re-advertisement and nominating the candidate at hand for Hannah Bartlebow. So I'm not sure if anyone...
You can change mine to re-advertise.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's the end of my report.
All right, we will now move to settle our agenda with our manager. Settle y'all agenda. I can change it, it's not mine anymore.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, and members of the council, for consent, I have items 1 through 5 and items 7 through 21. And for GBA public hearings, they would be items 24 through 26. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to settle the agenda?
Move to settle.
Second.
Okay, it was moved by Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Councilwoman Caballero. All those in favor, if you sign by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed have the same right. Hearing none, our agenda is settled. I thank you all for my very last work session, for all the hard work from our staff and everybody. I've enjoyed working with you all somewhat. I'm glad this chapter is moving on in my life. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, ma'am.
That's my only regret, is that you became my Mayor Pro Tem. That's my only regret. With that,
Thank you,
we
ma'am.
now adjourn. 4:37, 11:21, 2023. Don't make the same mistake, Leo. I mean that.